Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues. If I could ask you please to be seated so we could begin our afternoon session. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. I hope you had a good lunch. It seems we don't have the quorum, so they must still be in the budget meeting. That's what Frederick was saying. All right, so we can continue. I just would like to remind everybody that we managed to go through 6 nominations in the morning session. We still have 18 nominations to go. And supposedly we were supposed to finish it this afternoon, which I think it will be almost impossible. But in any case, I would like to encourage you distinguished colleagues to keep it succinct, short, to the point, and not to repeat congratulations outside the room, and to be able to get through the nominations. The order is in front of us, so unless there are any suggestions for change, we will continue and proceed as following. So the next site for inscription is the Silk Road, Penjikent, Samarkand, Poykent corridor, which is Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. And that is draft decision 38-8B.30. I invite ICOMOS to present. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This second Silk Roads nomination is for the Penjikent-Samarkand-Poykent corridor in the heartland of Central Asia. This corridor is to the west of the Taklamakan Desert, which is shown clearly in this image. The corridor extends from Penjikent in the east to Poykent in the west, a distance of some 365 kilometers. It runs through the wide, fertile basin of the Zarafshan River that rises in the Pamir Mountains and finally disappears into the desert in the west. This corridor was an important link in the Central Asian part of the Silk Roads, being the heartland of the Sogdians, whose merchants provided much of the early impetus for the Silk Roads trade between Central Asia and China. 11 sites within the corridor are being nominated, 10 are in Uzbekistan and 1 in Tajikistan. The prosperous urban culture that was fostered by the Silk Roads trade can be seen in the major urban centers of Penjikent at the eastern end, Poykent at the west, and also in the already inscribed cities of Samarkand, the capital of the Sogdians, and Bukhara. The precise extent of the Silk Road routes in the corridor linking the 11 sites have not been clearly set out. In terms of categories, this is a serial nomination. It is also a heritage route. The prosperous urban culture the prosperous urban culture that facilitated the Silk Roads trade is represented in the 4 urban centers. The elaborate infrastructure that facilitated the trade is represented by a caravanserai, and the movement of pilgrims along the route is reflected in 5 religious sites. The corridor had 3 main periods of prosperity. First, during the Turkish Khanate between the 6th to the 8th centuries, when the role of the Sogdian merchants increased significantly, and secondly, during the 10th century, the period of the Samanids, when cities and urban cultures flourished. Lastly, in the 14th and 15th century, at the time of the Timurids, when science, culture, urban planning, and economics significantly developed. In Penjikent are the extensive ruins of the ancient Sogdian town above the floodplain of the river Zarafshan. Penjikent was a city in the Sasanian Empire and was abandoned after the Muslim conquest in the mid-7th century AD. Parts have been excavated to reveal the structure of a large and prosperous trading city composed of a fortified citadel, the main walled city, which was a trade and financial center, and the suburbs that can include a Zoroastrian necropolis or dead city. Samarkand is in the title of the corridor, but the relationship between this already inscribed city and the other sites is not clearly set out, even though the 3rd major period of prosperity of the corridor was a result of the impact of the Timurid Empire. The river Zarafshan was the lifeblood for this whole corridor. The road between Samarkand and Bukhara was called the Royal Road. Around it, the landscape was intensively cultivated with a vast network of hundreds of kilometers of canals and numerous oases for travelers. These are not reflected in the choice of sites that have been put forward. Bukhara was strategically sited between the agricultural areas of central Sogdiana and the steppe, and from ancient times it provided a local market where nomadic peoples traded raw materials to be sent further along the Silk Roads. Poykent was a major center of trade from its foundation around the 3rd century BC until it was abandoned at the beginning of the 11th century. It also includes a fortified citadel with a Zoroastrian fire temple and 2 urban settlements surrounded by well-preserved examples of Sogdian military architecture. The Raboti Malik, or royal caravanserai, between Samarkand and Bukhara dates from the 11th century and is one of the largest structures of civil pre-Mongol architecture in Central Asia. The lofty main entrance portal has survived, while much of the rest of the two large courts with galleried porticos exists only in outline. The Rabat fell into disuse in the 19th century and has quickly deteriorated since. Water was supplied to the caravanserai by the 14th century domed Raboto Malik Sardoba, or reservoir, which drew water from the river Zarafshan along a canal that was nearly 30 kilometers long, and traces of this are still visible. Sardobas such as this were built at intervals of around 30 kilometers in the desert area of the Silk Roads, and this is one of the very few to have survived. These routes were not just important for trade, but also for Muslim pilgrims after the 8th century, and particularly for Sufi dervishes, for whom hostels or kanakos were developed along the routes. The focus of Bukhara as a sacrificial site intensified in the 16th century, and this led to the creation of several kanakos in its surroundings. This architectural ensemble, well, the pictures, I'm afraid, seem to be slightly out of step, but this architectural ensemble was built around the grave of Sheikh Mahoudin Naqshband, who died in 1389 and was the founder of one of the largest Sufi Muslim sects. In the 16th century, royal graves were added. The largest additions were made in the 19th century when 2 mosques and a minaret were constructed. The mausoleum of Chashma Ayub was also a kanakos, and dating from the 13th century, a portal and fragments of a west wing survived. Chor Bakir was also a memorial complex that became a family burial site. Kozim Shaikh complex was built originally in the 16th century as a memorial complex for a saint. It was altered in the 18th and 19th centuries, and very recently it has been entirely restored in 2003. In contrast to the archaeological sites, which lack funding for conservation, funds from pilgrims have been used to restore and enlarge many of these mausolea. The Mir Said Bakum mausoleum was built for an Arab pilgrim who died there during his pilgrimage along the Silk Roads at the beginning of the 11th century. Finally, the Vobkent minaret is in the center of Vobkent and is all that is left of a former large religious complex which was demolished in the 20th century. Just to say something about the choice of sites, while the cities clearly reflect the impact of trade and the shrines reflect pilgrims traveling along the route, many other important aspects of this particular corridor are not reflected in the choice of sites, particularly its relationship with the Zarafshan Valley and the way trade transformed that landscape. The interface with nomadic communities is mentioned in the text, but this needs to be substantiated in a meaningful way in connection with the specific sites. It is the series as a whole that needs to convey outstanding universal value, but as well, each of the sites needs to contribute to the overall series in a specific and meaningful way. This aspect of the nomination is one that needs to be significantly strengthened. Currently, in Penjikent and Poikent, the boundaries are not adequate to encompass all the important remains. They tend to include the citadel, but not all the suburbs, which are such a feature of these cities. There are also difficulties with potential urban development, and particularly around Penjikent, this is a cause for concern. The buffer zone to the north is currently not at all adequate to protect the site from this sort of development. ICOMOS considers that it is essential that the various corridors that are nominated for the Silk Roads clearly reflect certain specific geocultural political facets of the Silk Roads in a particular area, as well as conveying the fundamental characteristics of the overall routes. In this nomination, what has not come out particularly clearly in the justification for outstanding universal value are the defining characteristics of this section of the Silk Roads in relation to the whole. These need to be strengthened to set out clearly how and why this corridor might be seen to reflect the particular geocultural realities of this area, and acknowledging the way many sites within the corridor relate to the river and to the interface between nomadic and settled societies. Although ICOMOS considers this corridor has the potential to justify outstanding universal value, there is clearly not enough currently in the files to reflect the characteristics of the corridor and how they might contribute to a potential outstanding universal value. Consequently, we do not consider that the OUV and the criteria have been justified at the present time. This nomination is just a bit premature, and if the corridor is to be understood for its relationship to the Silk Roads, we consider that more advice is needed to augment what is currently in the dossier. Two other concerns relate to the state of conservation of large areas of earthen architecture that have been exposed and left with at best partial backfilling. The combination of rain and wind is eroding what is left of the architectural remains uncovered by excavations in Pendjikent and Poikent since the 1940s. The problem is also evident with the newly excavated areas uncovered as part of annual excavations in recent years. Sites revealed as late as 2003 to 2009 are now barely recognizable, as no attempt was made to stabilize the remains. By complete contrast, some of the 6 mausolea have been restored as a reflection of the support of pilgrims. And at this particular complex, the Bahauddin Naqshband complex, there are ongoing restorations, renovations, rehabilitations. Part of the facade has been rebuilt, as has the dome, and further major interventions are planned, some of which are indicated in these plans. Boundaries have been mentioned already. The creation of a transnational coordinating committee is a major step forward. Nevertheless, this needs to be underpinned by mechanisms that would allow sites within the network to collaborate with each other at a national and local level. Management plans are not yet in place, and management at a local level and the involvement of local communities needs to be strengthened. In conclusion, ICOMOS commends the efforts of the 2 state parties in preparing this nomination, and in order to allow time to fully develop its potential, ICOMOS recommends that this nomination be deferred in order to allow the state party, with advice if requested, to reappraise and refine the justification for outstanding universal value, to augment the internal comparative analysis to broaden the selection of sites, and provide more information on each of the sites in order to allow a full understanding of their structures and how they've developed over time. We also would need more detailed and accurate maps. There are also other issues connected to the boundaries, conservation plans, and the issue as to how the already inscribed sites of Samarkand and Bukhara contribute to the series and link to other sites. If necessary, ICOMOS would be very willing to undertake an advisory commission to advise on the implementation of the above recommendations in the framework of the upstream processes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS Kazakhstan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, we would like to note that the work on the nomination of this corridor of the Silk Road, as in our case, has been carried out for almost 10 years. With wide participation of Central Asian countries, Japan, China, Belgium, experts from World Heritage Center and ICOMOS. The material evidence of the nominated corridor presents a variety of types of cultural heritage that makes good prerequisites for sound representation of all aspects of the corridor and its OUV potential. We would like to make some comments on ICOMOS' conclusion that the management system of the property is not adequate in terms of efficiency of the dialogue between the state parties. The overall management of Tajik-Uzbek corridor of the Silk Roads has been carried out on a transnational level by a coordinating committee. This serves as a platform for communication and cooperation between the 2 state parties. Under Para 2A of the draft decision, it is stated to reappraise and refine the justification of the OUV for the overall corridor in terms of the specific way developed in cultural, political, and geographical terms in response to the Silk Road Strait, particularly in relation to the influence of the river Zarafshan and the interface between settled communities and nomadic societies. Kazakhstan delegation highlights that the above-mentioned statement is fully based on the ICOMOS thematic study. This study was developed as a guide for the state parties to work in a more manageable way on the nomination of a series of sites so complex as the Silk Roads. The system of corridors allowed this. However, as it was mentioned by the study, it is up to the state parties to define their corridor sites and corridors OUV based on the overall OUV of the Silk Roads. In para 2C of the draft decision, it is recommended to reconsider the selection of sites in order to allow the series to fully reflect the specific characteristics of this Silk Roads corridor. But these sites were actually selected and discussed based on the corridors proposed by the ICOMOS thematic study, and the state parties were involved in the overall nomination process. At the same time, we agree that work on the management and care of the archaeological sites has to be further improved. Therefore, Kazakhstan has prepared an amendment to the original draft decision aimed at the referral of the examination of the nominations, Silk Roads, Penjikent, Samarkand, Poykent corridor, and we would appreciate such support. Thank you.
Thank you. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you. The Penjikent-Samarkand-Poykent is one of the main corridors in Central Asia that were identified by ICOMOS thematic study. Connecting China to Europe, this heritage route not only played a significant role in trade between these regions, but also has important monuments which reflects the most developed periods of civilizations flourished in this region throughout history, such as Sogdians, Samanids, and Timurids. And we believe that if the state party provide additional information, particularly related to the defining characteristics of this corridor, and augment the comparative analysis in this respect, the site will justify to the inscription of World Heritage List. Therefore, we support the amendment made by the distinguished delegation of Kazakhstan. And as we stated earlier, Turkey wished to participate in this project for the remaining section of Silk Road. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Finland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Finland wants to congratulate the states parties of Tajikistan and Uzbekistan on this nomination. As we said earlier, many specific Silk Road corridors have the potential to be nominated in the World Heritage List. The site of Penjikent-Samarkand-Poykent corridor is without doubt one of them. According to ICOMOS evaluation, there are, however, some problems of nomination. With deferral, the states parties of Tajikistan and Uzbekistan would have time to refine the justification of the outstanding universal value, broaden the selection of sites, revise boundaries, and develop conservation and management plans. Finland supports ICOMOS evaluation and encourages the state parties to develop the documents and hopes to see the corridor on the World Heritage List in the future.
Thank you. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 2 points to make. The first point, at the risk of being repetitive, we have a question for ICOMOS. In page 194 of the documentation, we noticed that no additional information was asked from the state parties in question. And our question is, why was this not asked for sites of such significance which are a part of the Silk Route? And what is particularly perplexing is that for the earlier project of the Silk Routes, this was asked for. So it just doesn't make any sense to us. There appears to be some dichotomy here. And certainly I think, as I said, I know I'm being repetitive, but this is something, again, that really we are quite perplexed at. Like Kazakhstan, my second point is that we do acknowledge that this is a very significant project and much work has been done. Much work remains to be done, and therefore we would also support them that this project be moved from deferred to referred project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your persistence. Germany, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to congratulate the states parties for this valuable nomination. I understand from ICOMOS that the file is not yet complete, that there are still some improvements to be done before inscription. I do agree. But as far as I understood the ICOMOS presentation, it is not necessary to send another mission to the states parties. And if this is so, then I think we can go along with the proposal of Kazakhstan, namely referral. Thank you.
Does anyone object to referral? Does anybody still wish to intervene? Croatia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would actually go along with the proposal of Kazakhstan and Germany.
Thank you. Jamaica, would you wish to comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We support the recommendation for referral. Thank you.
Thank you. With that being said, I see no more comments or intervention with regards to the proposal for referral, but I will give the floor to ICOMOS to respond to some of the comments made. ICOMOS, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, about the issue of a mission, which was raised by the Honourable Delegate from Germany. We certainly consider that a mission would be desirable because there are quite difficult issues with conservation, management, boundaries, which are the things that missions look at, and one want to see progress with all of these through a mission. Secondly, the question of extra information, which the Honourable Delegate for India raised. This is a tricky issue as to when and how and if we ask for extra information. But in the case of this file, quite a lot of extra information was needed. And in effect, if we'd written to the state party early on, we'd have been asking, in practice, for a great deal of work to augment the file. In fact, what happened was that we asked our mission expert to see what information was available and what we might be able to ask for, if I can put it that way, and whether enough could be brought forward to satisfy all our demands in this cycle. So in this instance, we judged that it would not be possible to get information that would meet the needs to push this forward for inscription. Although it's a good file in many ways, it's quite slender and needs augmenting in a number of different ways. So we'd be almost looking at a rewrite of the file to satisfy all that was required. In terms of one other question, one other point that was made, I think, by Kazakhstan, the Honourable Delegate from Kazakhstan, I just wanted to clarify the issue of outstanding universal value and where it resides in relation to the Silk Roads. Because I think, if I'm right, what was mentioned was the outstanding universal value of the Silk Roads. The Silk Roads as a whole doesn't have outstanding universal value. As the nomination strategy that's being put forward sets out, it's the individual corridors that have outstanding universal value, and the Silk Roads is an overarching concept. And I think that distinction needs to be made clear. I entirely agree with the Honourable Delegate for Kazakhstan that the ICOMOS thematic study was guidance for the state parties and suggestions for how these corridors might be put forward. Within this this is part of one of the corridors that was suggested in the thematic study, and indeed some of these sites were highlighted, but again, the thematic study wasn't totally prescriptive, and it's clearly up to state parties to look at the characteristics of the corridor and see how they might be best represented in a nomination. I think that's probably all I need to comment on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ICOMOS. Mr. Rapporteur, could you please read the draft decision as amended? But before that, Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question to ICOMOS. To the question from Germany, I heard that another mission would be desirable, and also we understand that much work should be done. And how do you think does that referral ensure that in time enough to prepare to complete the document?
Poland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After listening to ICOMOS comments, we would like to support Finland and Japan. Thank you.
Thank you, Poland. ICOMOS, would you like to respond to Japan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Although the referral might be seen as a preferable option in terms of giving encouragement to the state party, we would see that it could bring some problems. Although referral allows the state party to come back within any time within 3 years, the evaluation timescale is much shortened for a referral. There's no mission. There's very little chance for engagement with the state party. And we would not see it as a valuable option in this regard, because we think that if it was deferral and if the state parties chose to consult ICOMOS, perhaps through an advisory mission, we consider a more satisfactory outcome could be forthcoming. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Lebanon.
Thank you, Mrs. President. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Hier, dans un des cas où nous avons décidé de référer un des sites, un des biens, nous avons demandé à l'État partie d'inviter une mission d'ICOMOS, conjointe d'ICOMOS et du centre. On pourrait faire la même chose pour ce site. Merci.
Thank you. Mr. Rapporteur, could you please read the draft decision as amended?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have received, as announced along the debate, amendments to paragraph number 2 of this draft decision from the delegation of Kazakhstan, reading as follows: refers the nomination of Silk Roads, Penjikent, Samarkand, Poykent corridor, sorry for the pronunciation, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and the rest. Then the distinguished delegation of Kazakhstan is also proposing to delete the paragraph 2A, as well as original 2C. Then also we will have to remove the original paragraph number 5, but of course in accordance to what the distinguished delegate from Lebanon and in agreement with what was mentioned by the distinguished representative from ICOMOS, probably we will need to add a new paragraph in order to invite this advisory mission. If it's okay, as rapporteur, I can assure that in this draft decision we can just put the same paragraph that was decided to be included for the decision yesterday in this new paragraph. So it is, if you are in agreement, Madam Chair, it's needless to read the new paragraph. I will assure I will include it, and you can proceed for the adoption. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I hope there are no objection to this, so we could proceed. Are there any comments or interventions to be made? I see none. I now declare decision 38-8B.30 adopted as amended. It's deferred, right? It's not inscribed. It referred. It's gone from deferral to referral. So now we'll move on to Europe and North America. We will start with the draft decision 38-8B.32. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the decorated cave of Pont d'Arc, known as Grotte Chauvet Pont d'Arc, Ardèche, France. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. The decorated cave of Pont d'Arc, known as Grotte Chevet, contains the earliest known pictorial drawings dating back to the early Aurignacian period, 30,000 to 32,000 years before present. The cave was closed off by a rockfall approximately 20,000 years ago and remained sealed until its rediscovery in 1994. This is a new nomination which was initially received in 2012, submitted as a nomination under the emergency procedure. The ICOMOS evaluation at the time concluded that the cave remained in an excellent and pristine condition and did not face any serious danger. ICOMOS recommended the nomination dossier to be resubmitted according to the regular time frame for evaluation, which it was in 2013. The Grotte Chevet is located in a limestone plateau of the meandering Ardèche River in southern France. Together with its surroundings, the proposed property covers 9 hectares and is surrounded by a buffer zone of 1,362 hectares. The buffer zone, including the Arc of Pont d'Arc, has been classified as a site of natural heritage value in 2013. The opening of the cave has been closed off by a stone fall dated approximately 20,000 years ago, which sealed the cave until it was reopened for scientific investigation in 1994. Grotte Chevet is an underground cave which stretches along approximately 800 meters of so-called halls and galleries with a maximum width of 59 meters and a maximum height of about 18 meters. The cave contains more than 1,000 drawings, predominantly of animals, including several dangerous species, as well as more than 4,000 inventoried remains of prehistoric fauna, in particular the cave bear, which seems to have regularly frequented the cave. The pictorial drawings, which are the oldest known human artistic testimonies of this kind, can be divided in 3 principal techniques: engravings, red drawings of bound ground pigment, and black drawings drawn of charcoal. 55% of the drawings are anthropomorphic representations, a majority of these hands, with the remaining 45 showing zoomorphic imagery, mostly very dangerous species, the observation of which was only possible under risk of life for the Aurignacian people. Grotte Chevet does not only contain an unusually large collection of drawings of high artistic and aesthetic quality, its state of conservation is also exceptional, as the concealment of the cave has protected the drawings in pristine condition. ICOMOS considers that the property demonstrates outstanding universal value on the basis of criteria 1 and 3. The cave remains unmodified, except for the installation of completely reversible stainless steel bridging elements to allow for access to parts of the cave while preventing interruption of the floor traces and finds. The cave remains vulnerable, however, to any changes in relative humidity and air composition, and access needs to be strictly controlled. Following discussion on alternatives to access for the interpretation and presentation of the site, a facsimile reconstruction is being envisaged to the north of the buffer zone, here indicated by a blue arrow. The visitor center for the facsimile will be constructed at a distance which excludes any potential impacts on the Grotte Chevet, and is aimed at reconstructing some of the cave situations and its paintings with a rediscovery and interpretation center to attract visitors. ICOMOS considers that the boundaries, protection status, conservation regulations, and management approaches are satisfactory. Accordingly, ICOMOS recommends that the decorated cave of Pont d'Arc, known as Grotte Chevet Pont d'Arc, Ardèche, France, be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 1 and 3. The only recommendation ICOMOS would like to add to this inscription is to create a long-term legal framework which retains the current access restrictions for visitors to a strict maximum annual numbers, and which continues to prevent direct physical contacts with the walls and floors of the cave. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, ICOMOS. Lebanon, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je n'ai pas l'habitude de prendre la parole pour féliciter les États parties et lancer simplement des félicitations et des fleurs, mais cette fois c'est un site vraiment exceptionnel Et je félicite la France et je félicite le Comité du patrimoine mondial pour l'inscription de ce site exceptionnel. Merci.
Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Germany thanks France for having brought forward to the committee this remarkable site. The cave really contains the best preserved expressions of artistic creation of the Aurignacian people, constituting an exceptional testimony of prehistoric cave art. We have nothing to add. We would like to see the site inscribed. Thank you.
Croatia.
Yes, I think we should all rejoice to be able to inscribe this site on the World Heritage List. And thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. Like I said, we should all rejoice to be able to inscribe this site on the World Heritage List, along with Lascaux. France is now guardian of some of the oldest traces of human genius, the humankind's voices of silence. Nous voulons féliciter l'État membre pour l'inscription de la grotte ornée du pont d'Arc sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Thank you. Finland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Finland would also like to congratulate the State Party of France on this nomination that will be a valuable contribution to the group of decorated caves. Finland fully supports the inscription of these fantastic caves on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan supports the inscription and congratulates France. This property could provide a valuable help for the conservation of other decorated caves in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. The Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Republic of Korea joins support for inscription of the decorated cave of Pont d'Arc. Thank you.
Senegal.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, nous voudrions joindre notre voix à toutes celles qui se sont exprimées pour féliciter la France de nous avoir présenté ce bien exceptionnel et manifester notre impatience de voir la reproduction accessible au public bientôt prête pour que nous puissions en bénéficier. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Serbia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My delegation fully supports inscription of this site to the World Heritage List, and once again we want to congratulate France for this nomination. Thank you.
Qatar, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Permettez-moi de parler en français cette fois-ci. Le Qatar voudrait féliciter la France pour ce merveilleux site dont l'accès est très contrôlé. Malheureusement, je le regrette beaucoup, je n'ai pas pu visiter la grotte quand l'occasion m'en a été donnée. J'espère que une autre fois ce sera possible. Donc, félicitations pour la France. Merci.
Thank you. Vietnam, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Le Vietnam se joint à d'autres délégations pour appuyer pleinement l'inscription de ce site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial et féliciter l'État partie, la France, pour présenter ce dossier d'inscription. Dans mes années d'étudiant, j'ai entendu parler de cette grotte et cette fois, c'est la première fois que je vois ce site sur l'écran. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Portugal, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous nous réjouissons de cette candidature de la France et sommes complètement d'accord avec l'ICOMOS en ce qui concerne l'inscription immédiate de la grotte Chauvet-Pont d'Arc dans la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci Madame.
Thank you. Poland, you have the floor.
Poland would like also to join other speakers and to support the inscription of this property. Thank you.
India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Equally briefly, just like the others, let me congratulate France for bringing forward this exquisite site and to say that India fully and completely supports its inscription to the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. Algeria, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, la délégation algérienne félicite la France pour ce bien qui est remarquable, de ce bien préhistorique remarquable, et aussi de l'excellente coopération avec l'ICOMOS, qui a préconisé son inscription immédiate sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Nous y souscrivons pleinement. Merci.
Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jamaica wishes to extend congratulations to France for this extraordinary property. We see this as one of the few sites during this 38th session that significantly reflects Criterion 1, a masterpiece of human creative genius. We support the inscription. Thank you.
Thank you, Malaysia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Malaysia would like to join the others in congratulating France for a very remarkable prehistoric rock painting site. We join the others also in supporting it for inscription.
Thank you. Philippines, you now have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Nous voudrons féliciter la France pour cette site exceptionnel et nous voudrons confirmer notre soutien pour l'inscription de cette site. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Merci. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Bueno, hemos comprendido un poco esta mañana que si estábamos todos de acuerdo no lo expresáramos, pero en este momento el silencio no tendría ningún sentido, por lo cual creo que Colombia prácticamente cierra el circuito de este consenso de expresar que todos estamos satisfechos y orgullosos de que sea inscrito en la lista. Gracias.
Thank you. With that being said, Mr. Rapporteur, have you anything to amend? Turkey.
Turkey also welcomes the inscription of decorated cave Pont. In spite of extensive advancement on science and technology, the scientific world has still more to surprise and provide further data to expand our understanding of early human development. This site has improved the literature on rock art and our understanding of lives of the first Homo sapiens, providing new scientific data. We would like to thank France for the immense effort they have invested in the preservation of this site by constructing a replica for public appreciation. This nomination is also an enrichment to one of UNESCO's thematic programs, Human Evolution, Adaptations, Dispersal and Social Development's HEADS program, which Turkey supports greatly. I take this opportunity to announce that Turkish National Commission for UNESCO and Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism, in collaboration with the World Heritage Center, will be holding a meeting of experts in Çatalhöyük in 10 to 14th of November 2014. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Rapporteur.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Et pour ce projet de décision 38 comme 8B32, nous n'avons reçu aucun amendement, donc vous pouvez procéder à l'adoption de ce projet de décision, Madame la Présidente. Merci.
Thank you. I now declare decision 38 com 8B.32 adopted. On behalf of the entire committee, I congratulate France for the inscription of this property. France, you have the floor. France, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais avant toute chose remercier le comité et ses États membres pour la décision qu'il vient de prendre et pour les mots, les louanges qui l'ont accompagné. Je voudrais aussi rendre hommage au Centre du patrimoine mondial et à ses équipes, ainsi qu'à ICOMOS pour son impeccable évaluation qui rend pleinement justice à un site qui est en effet d'une beauté exceptionnelle. J'ai eu la chance, pour ne pas dire le privilège, de visiter la grotte ornée du Pont d'Art, dite grotte Chauvet. Et je dois dire que j'en suis sorti littéralement sidéré par ce que j'y avais vu, qui révolutionne le regard que nous portons sur nos origines, sur notre histoire, sur l'art de manière générale et plus particulièrement sur la peinture. De cette grotte, je crois qu'on pourrait dire, reprenant les mots de La Bruyère, son incipit à son ouvrage sur les caractères, tout est peint et l'on vient trop tard depuis qu'il y a 36 000 ans des hommes et qui pensent. Je vais passer la parole rapidement à Pascal Terrasse, qui est le député de l'Ardèche et qui a porté avec ses équipes depuis de longues années maintenant cette candidature. Je vous remercie.
Merci 36 000 fois, merci pour les 36 000 ans qui nous séparent de ce chef-d'œuvre que vous venez d'inscrire. Merci, c'est un grand moment pour ma région, c'est un grand moment pour la France, mon pays. Merci au comité du patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO, merci encore à ICOMOS pour leurs engagements. Merci à toutes les équipes scientifiques, techniques et administratives. Merci à mon voisin Hervé Solignac, élu référent. Merci aux spéléologues qui ont fait de cette découverte exceptionnelle un lieu magique. Il s'agit du premier acte culturel. Nous l'avons tous en héritage. Voici les vestiges les plus anciens et voici l'aurore des arts. La lumière de la connaissance efface l'obscurité et le silence du passé. Les grandes cérémonies culturelles, vous le savez, ont vocation à récompenser les artistes. Notre ancêtre, l'Aurignacien, cet artiste, vient enfin d'être reconnu aujourd'hui. Qu'il nous pardonne d'avoir attendu 36 000 ans pour consacrer son œuvre. Le temps a refermé la grotte sur son chef-d'œuvre, tel un trésor caché pour mieux le protéger. Nous qui en avons désormais la responsabilité, nous prenons devant vous l'engagement de protéger ce bien universel. Nous prenons enfin l'engagement d'offrir à l'humanité, à travers la réalisation d'un facsimilé, d'une réplique à l'identique, un accès à cette richesse dans un lieu ouvert à la jeunesse du monde. Vous êtes, dans quelques mois maintenant, invités tous à venir dans mon beau département l'Ardèche pour visiter la réplique de la caverne du Pont d'Arc. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, and once again, congratulations on this inscription. We will now move on to the next draft decision, which is draft decision 38-8B.34. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the caves of Maresha and Guvrin. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Les grottes de Maresha et de Guvrin en Basse-Judée, un microcosme du pays des grottes, Israël. Le bien comprend une sélection très complète de chambres et de réseaux souterrains aux formes et aux fonctions diversifiées. Ils sont situés dans le sous-sol des cités antiques jumelles de Maresha et Guvrin et à leurs abords. Ils témoignent d'une succession de périodes historiques, de creusements et d'usages pendant près de 2000 ans. En termes de catégorie de biens, il s'agit d'un site. Le bien a été présenté pour examen en 2011, l'ICOMOS ayant recommandé de différer l'examen de la proposition. Celle-ci a été retirée par l'État partie. Le bien proposé pour inscription est situé en Basse-Judée, dans une région de collines et de plateaux comprenant les deux cités antiques voisines déjà mentionnées. Le sous-sol de la région consiste en un calcaire crayeux ou marneux. Il s'agit d'une roche compacte, homogène mais tendre et assez commode à excaver. Elle a permis le creusement de grottes depuis la plus haute antiquité. Le bien comprend près de 500 ensembles souterrains, illustrant de nombreux types d'excavations artificielles au cours des âges. Seule une cinquantaine de grottes sont aujourd'hui accessibles aux visiteurs. Par exemple, les grottes ont été utilisées pour l'élevage des pigeons, qui fut une production florissante. Les parois étaient creusées de niches. Les carrières souterraines étaient souvent transformées ensuite en citernes, en bassins de décantation, parfois en bains publics. Leur mise en relation formait un système de drainage des eaux de pluie avec les excavations naturelles existantes, donnant des ensembles hydrauliques souterrains parfois très importants. Les relations avec le monde extérieur étaient des éléments d'usage essentiels. Mais le bâti autour des ouvertures a souvent été modifié et il est peu authentique. Aussi, ces constructions ne font pas partie du bien proposé tout en jouant un rôle important dans la compréhension des sites. Les grottes artificielles de Maresha ont notamment servi comme atelier de pressage et de stockage de l'huile d'olive. formant des ensembles de production souterrains importants et sophistiqués. Maresha fut l'un des centres importants de production de l'huile d'olive durant l'Antiquité hellénistique, exportant jusque vers l'Égypte. Des cuves et des pressoirs directement taillés dans le calcaire subsistent. Des complexes souterrains à usage domestique, parfois très importants, ont été reconnus, comme ici l'ensemble 61, dans la cité antique de Maresha, constituant une ville sous la ville. Notons qu'il ne s'agit pas d'habitat, mais de grottes fonctionnelles pour la vie économique, sociale et religieuse. Ce sont des ensembles généralement bien conservés, car ils ont été abandonnés puis oubliés. Des chambres d'excavation ont été utilisées comme étables ou écuries pour le stockage des denrées, des marchandises, des céréales, etc. Certains vestiges montrent un rôle des grottes dans l'artisanat textile. Les grottes ont aussi joué un rôle dans la vie sociale quotidienne et comme refuge en cas de trouble. Une quarantaine de sites funéraires ont été creusés dans le sous-sol des Piedmont, au voisinage de Maresha, dont 3 nécropoles principales. La majorité des chambres funéraires remontent au 4e, 3e siècle avant Jésus-Christ, témoignant du culte des morts hellénistiques inspiré d'Alexandrie. La nécropole des tombeaux sidoniens est richement décorée de peintures murales et d'inscriptions. La frise des animaux apporte en particulier un témoignage important et rare sur l'art hellénistique. Les chambres d'excavation en forme de cloche dominent dans la région de Guvrin. Elles sont adaptées au grand volume dû à leur fonction initiale de carrière, dont l'apogée a eu lieu pendant la période islamique. Les parties aujourd'hui utilisées par les visiteurs demandent cependant des renforcements et des mesures de sécurité. L'intégrité a été jugée satisfaisante ainsi que l'authenticité. Tout en saluant les approfondissements de l'étude comparative, celle-ci aurait pu être étendue à l'échelle des villes construites sur des sous-sols calcaires. Le critère 5 a été justifié. Les délimitations du bien proposé pour inscription et de la zone tampon sont satisfaisantes. La protection légale est en place. L'état de conservation du bien est également satisfaisant. Le système de gestion du bien est en place et il est approprié. L'ICOMOS recommande donc que les grottes de Maresha et Guvrin, en Basse-Judée, microcosme du pays des grottes Israël, soient inscrits sur la liste du patrimoine mondial sur la base du critère 5. L'ICOMOS recommande en outre qu'il soit porté une attention particulière à la conservation de l'authenticité dans les travaux de restauration et d'aménagement en cours ou en projet. Les reconstructions extérieures doivent rester minimalistes. Si le projet de la Villa Hill est confirmé, il doit être soumis à l'examen du Comité du patrimoine mondial conformément au paragraphe 172 des orientations. Il est également nécessaire de renforcer le système de suivi des paramètres physiques au sein des grottes. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Lebanon, you have the floor.
Oui, merci Madame la Présidente. Juste 2 petites questions à ICOMOS. Dans l'analyse comparative, nous n'avons trouvé aucune référence aux nombreuses grottes dans les montagnes libanaises et en particulier du nord du Liban, dont une partie est comprise dans les limites du site du Wadi Kadisha inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Il nous semblait pourtant assez judicieux que ce type d'analyse, c'est pas très loin, n'est-ce pas, hein? Ensuite, la deuxième question, c'est concernant la propriété. Il est écrit le propriétaire du bien est l'État d'Israël. L'exercice du droit de propriété est confié à une autorité spécifique légale. Est-ce qu'on pourrait savoir qui est cette autorité spécifique légale? Merci.
Thank you. Portugal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. From a cultural, historical, and scientific point of view, we are glad to say that this site is a valuable inscription on the World Heritage List. This is indeed a property of our indisputed OUV that bears witness of excavation and use for over a period of 2,000 years. We recommend that the special attention be given by Israeli authorities to the 3 recommendations by ICOMOS in order to preserve the integrity and authenticity of this outstanding property. We praise Israel for presenting this nomination, which we recommend be inscribed on the list following ICOMOS proposal. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Germany thanks the State Party for having brought back to the committee this very valuable nomination. As we have learned, it was already proposed it was proposed several years ago, and it was recommended by ICOMOS to defer in 2011. Now it's back, and ICOMOS evaluation is positive. It suggests it's proposed for inscription. First of all, I would like to say it's a good example for a deferral, a successful example of a deferral, which is not necessarily the end of a nomination, as we can see in this case. And I do agree with the ICOMOS recommendation and propose the nomination for inscription to the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. Germany, Croatia, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Et merci aux représentants de l'ICOMOS en fait, pour ce rapport qui était vraiment bien fait. The report, which in our opinion is well balanced and accurate, considers that the comparative analysis justifies consideration of this property for the World Heritage List, that conditions of integrity and of authenticity have been met, and that the nominated property can be inscribed according to criteria 5. Also, the legal protection in place is adequate and effectively applied, the state of conservation satisfactory, the management system of the property well established. This is an extraordinary site representing the rich heritage of the State Party and shows its dedication to the preservation and promotion of the World Heritage Convention. We could go on enumerating reasons for inscribing the site, but you have asked us to be brief. We want to congratulate Israel and support the recommendation to inscribe the caves of Maresha and Guvrin on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. Finland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Finland would like to congratulate the State Party of Israel on this very well prepared nomination. Finland is confident that the State Party will follow the recommendations given by ICOMOS and therefore support the inscription of the site on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jamaica wishes to congratulate the State Party for this nomination, commends the work of ICOMOS, and supports the inscription. Thank you.
Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Japan supports the inscription and especially commend the hard effort made by the State Party to improve the conservation management system after the initial nomination was withdrawn upon the deferral recommendation in 2011. So in that sense, I see the value of the deferral recommendation, just like the German delegate mentioned. Thank you.
Turkey, you have the floor.
We welcome the inscription of Maresha and Guvrin on the World Heritage List. Drawing the attention of the committee and the advisory bodies to the fact that there is a substantial number of equestrian sites in the World Heritage List, such as Matera in Italy, Lalibela in Ethiopia, Göreme National Park and the rock sites in Turkey, and Petra in Jordan. We would like to suggest to grouping them under a thematic program address their specific conservation challenges in a more focused way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Serbia, you have the floor.
Very short, Madam. My delegation fully supports inscription of this site in the list of World Heritage.
Poland, you have the floor.
We would like also to join the other state members of the committee and to support the inscription of this site for the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We join the others too in congratulating the State Party and in having this on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Philippines would like to congratulate the State Party for their work on documentation towards its outstanding universal value. Congratulations, Israel, for the splendid contribution to the World Heritage List.
Colombia.
Gracias. Colombia quiere expresar su apoyo por la inscripción de este maravilloso sitio. Gracias.
Thank you. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, like the others, to congratulate Israel for putting forth this excellent nomination and to say that India fully supports its its inscription to the World Heritage List. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Vietnam, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous sommes aussi brefs. Nous appuyons pleinement l'inscription de ce site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial et félicitons l'État partie. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. J'ai pointé deux questions. L'une concernant l'analyse comparative, elle a été jugée suffisante tout en ayant des faiblesses. ICOMOS a trouvé des faiblesses. L'honorable délégué du Liban en a trouvé encore une autre. En ce qui concerne la propriété du bien, il s'agit d'une autorité spécifique, non pas d'une autorité spéciale, ce n'est pas exactement le même sens. C'est un bail amphithéotique auprès d'une structure de parc qui est supportée à la fois par l'autorité israélienne de la nature et des parcs et l'autorité israélienne des antiquités, ainsi que par les deux conseils régionaux concernés. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS, Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any amendments to the draft decision?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For this draft decision, we have received no amendments, so you can proceed for the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no more comments or objections, I now declare decision 38.8b.34 adopted. Let me congratulate the State Party on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription of this property. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a good idea what the lady said.
You have the floor.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chairperson,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
distinguished members of the committee,
Thank you very much.
on behalf of the State of Israel, I wish to thank the committee for inscribing the caves of Maresha and Bet Guvrin on the list of World Heritage. The inscription of the site is yet a further recognition of the important contribution of Israel to the regional and the world heritage. A lot of hard work and efforts were invested preparing the dossier, and we are thankful to all stakeholders involved in the process. Israel is a living laboratory that connects history and present, and the caves are a vivid example of it. In the ancient periods, the land of Israel was an important crossroad of empires, different civilizations and societies, and this fact is manifested in the numerous archaeological sites throughout the country. The site inscribed today, with its around 500 caves, constitutes one of the richest underground complexes worldwide. As we stated earlier, and as ICOMOS has recommended, this site is an exceptional cultural property that presents a succession of ethnic groups using the caves for various functions during thousands of years. The multicultural character of the property reflects the variety of societies who use the caves for their needs. The holistic nature of the site integrates the special geology of the region with the special techniques of quarrying caves developed in Israel. The State of Israel is committed to continue safeguarding the property for the present and future generations. We invite you all to come visiting the site and enjoy its beauty. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Now we will move on. We'll move on to Italy as requested and agreed by Turkey that Italy will move ahead in the schedule. And we will be discussing now the draft decision 38.8b.41. before I give the floor to ICOMOS, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Balsamo. Mr. Balsamo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We received a factual error notification concerning this nomination, which is to be found on page 67 of document INF 8B4 Rev. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the vineyard landscape of Piedmont, Longoiro and Monferrato in Italy. You have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le paysage viticole du Piémont, Longoiro et Monferrato, Italie. Le paysage viticole du Piémont correspond à une sélection de 5 vignobles distincts et du château de Cavour, dont les noms illustrent un savoir-faire approfondi et ancien dans la relation de l'homme à son environnement. Le bien se distingue par son harmonie et son équilibre entre les qualités esthétiques de ses paysages, la diversité architecturale et historique des éléments bâtis associés aux activités vitivinicoles et un art de la vinification authentique et ancien. En termes de catégorie de biens culturels, il s'agit d'une proposition d'inscription en série de 5 ensembles et d'un monument. Au terme des orientations, il s'agit également d'un paysage culturel. Cette proposition d'inscription a été différée une première fois en 2012 au 36e comité, afin de permettre à l'État partie de considérer une série de questions qui sont ici rappelées et dont il a tenu compte. Le bien est situé dans la partie méridionale de la région du Piémont, entre la vallée du Pô au nord et les monts Apennins de Ligurie au sud. La série est formée de 5 territoires viticoles et d'un château s'étendant sur de vastes territoires de collines encadrés de vallées peu profondes, favorables au transport. La surface totale est proche de 10 800 hectares. Le bien numéro 1 est l'Anga des Barolo. Il constitue une partie emblématique du vignoble du Piémont par la réputation de son savoir-faire et le cépage local Nebbiolo. Le vignoble de l'Anga des Barolo forme une grande cuvette autour du village de Barolo. Son paysage est composé de parcelles de vignes soignées et ce lieu fut utilisé dès l'Antiquité. L'habitat est composé de villages médiévaux avec leur château au centre et une organisation en bastide circulaire. Le bien numéro 2, au nord du premier, est le château de Grinzane-Cavour. Il comprend les terrains immédiatement adjacents au château. Il occupe le sommet d'une petite colline à proximité du village. Le château et son domaine furent, au milieu du XIXe siècle, la propriété du comte de Cavour, personnage emblématique de l'unité italienne et promoteur éclairé de la viticulture moderne dans le Piémont. Ce fut un lieu d'expérimentation et de diffusion des techniques françaises de vitivinification. Les châteaux et, avant eux, les abbayes ont joué depuis le Moyen-Âge un rôle important dans l'organisation du vignoble, ainsi que pour le stockage et la commercialisation du vin. Le bien numéro 3 est la colline de Barbaresco, c'est le plus petit vignoble de la série. Le paysage de Barbaresco offre un ensemble remarquable de paysages de vignobles collinaires bien marqués, parfois très anciens, entre la vallée du Tanaro et une ligne de crête proche de 600 mètres d'altitude. L'époque romaine organisa de grands vignobles dans la péninsule italique et tout particulièrement dans cette région. L'établissement des savoir-faire, leur lente amélioration et leur transmission s'est effectuée sur une très longue continuité historique dont les villages portent les signatures architecturales et urbaines. La grande richesse historique du bâti et son intégration harmonieuse dans les paysages apportent une touche unique et caractéristique de ces vignobles. Généralement disposés sur les hauteurs, les villages des vignerons gardent leur topographie médiévale à caractère défensif, mais aussi la perpétuation des anciennes maisons de commerce avec leurs celliers et leurs caves. Le bien numéro 4 est Nisa Monferrato et Barbera. Ce bien est situé dans la partie haute de la région. Le nom de Barbera indique simultanément le cépage et le vin. L'adéquation réussie du sol, du cépage et du travail continu des hommes remonte à au moins 500 ans. Les paysages viticoles des collines se succèdent sur des pentes moyennes. Ils sont de forme relativement douce, caractérisés par l'absence de terrasses. Les rangées de vignes sont systématiquement disposées en suivant les lignes d'altitude, formant une véritable signature de ce vignoble. Les vallées ont permis le développement de petites villes dédiées principalement au négoce du vin, alors que les villages collinaires gardaient leurs origines médiévales dans leur urbanisme. L'époque moderne et la prospérité du vignoble ont permis le développement d'importantes fermes viticoles au sein même du vignoble. Le paysage est aussi marqué par un patrimoine vernaculaire comme les petites cabanes ou chiabos qui sont pour les outils des vignerons. Le bien numéro 5 est Spumante dei Canelli et Asti. Cette aire centrale au sein de la série a été fortement réduite par rapport à la première proposition d'inscription afin de ne retenir que les paysages les plus complets. Dérivée de la méthode champenoise, la vinification du Moscato donne un vin blanc pétillant et aromatique très connu, l'Asti Spumante. La réussite économique nationale puis internationale du Spumante depuis le milieu du XIXe siècle a donné lieu à un développement urbain de villes consacrées à son commerce, comme Asti ou Canelli. Son négoce reste dominé par de puissantes dynasties familiales. D'importants celliers en sous-sol creusés dans les marnes calcaires permettent la conservation des bouteilles et une conservation adaptée. Le bien numéro 6 est Monferrato de l'Inferno, c'est le plus septentrional de la série, séparé des précédents par une large vallée. Le paysage collinaire est ici doux et homogène, le vin est produit essentiellement à partir de cépages Barbera. L'habitat urbain des viticulteurs, comme les cas pour la conservation dans les infernos, présente une architecture souvent remarquable. L'intégrité et l'authenticité ont été jugés satisfaisants, ainsi que l'analyse comparative. Les critères 3 et 5 ont été démontrés. Les délimitations du bien en série et ses zones tampons sont appropriées. Les protections légales de la série et des zones tampons sont satisfaisantes. L'état de conservation est satisfaisant. Le système de gestion est approprié, notamment par la mise en place de l'association de gestion. Mais ses moyens devraient être renforcés, sa représentativité élargie aux communes et aux milieux socio-professionnels. Les projets du plan de gestion doivent être plus coordonnés entre eux et mieux distingués entre ceux qui sont réellement approuvés et ceux qui ne sont que de simples projets. En conséquence, l'ICOMOS recommande que le paysage viticole du Piedmont, Langhe-Roero et Monferrato, Italie, soit inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial selon les critères 3 et 5. Outre les recommandations déjà faites sur l'association de gestion, sur la meilleure coordination et la meilleure hiérarchisation des actions du plan de gestion, il est nécessaire de mieux prendre en compte les valeurs sociales qui contribuent de manière importante à la gestion du bien et à sa conservation et de réorganiser les indicateurs du suivi de la conservation afin de les rendre plus cohérents. Merci.
Thank you. Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Germany would like to thank the State Party for having proposed this beautiful site, and would like also to thank the advisory body, ICOMOS, for the evaluation. The recommendation proposed, inscription, we can support. And in conclusion, Italy remains the world champion on the World Heritage list. Thank you.
I think with that being said, does anybody object to this inscription? I see no objection, so can we go and inscribe the... Unless somebody feels very strongly to speak, I would like to go ahead and inscribe the site. India, do you feel strongly? Everybody is strongly in favor, so I'm just saying if there's somebody who wants to speak against it, otherwise you'd like to speak Croatia? You have the floor.
I'm going to speak against. I simply wanted to inquire about the wine. We have seen lots of images of this. How is the wine? Can we get some explanation on that as well, please?
Francesco, would you like to explain? You've been telling me all about it forgetting that we don't drink, but you
Sorry,
still want
I was telling it, but I was a bit embarrassed because we were talking about this. Well, of course, these are the most famous Italian wines: the Barolo, the Barbera, and of course the Spumante. And so I think you can enjoy it at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, let us go and declare decision 38.8b.41 adopted. Let me congratulate Italy on behalf of the entire committee for this inscription of this property. Italy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is with great pleasure that Italy wishes to address to the World Heritage Committee and to UNESCO its sincere gratitude for this prestigious recognition, as well as to ICOMOS for its very helpful recommendations. This is a particularly important achievement for Italy. I would like to express the appreciation of the Italian government, of the Italian National Commission for UNESCO, of the Italian Permanent Delegation to UNESCO, and especially the appreciation by the local administration and communities that have done such a huge effort for the fulfillment of this nomination, according to the spirit of the World Heritage Convention. Italy expresses the willingness to further strengthen its cooperation with UNESCO in order to share its passion and knowledge with the community of member states. Madam Chair, allow me to briefly pass the floor to the Regional Minister of Culture of the Piedmont region.
On behalf of the Piedmont region and of our winemakers, I would like to thank the World Heritage Committee for this important recognition. The living vineyard landscape of Langhe and Monferrato has been shaped by the passionate work of people over the century. A warm thanks also to the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, to the Ministry of Agriculture, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to the Regional Office, and to the City Institute that prepared this nomination. I also want to recall the active role played by all local stakeholders in sharing their knowledge and tradition. As a serial site, we commit ourselves to improve the collaboration within the different component parts, each of them with its specificity, and to implement the helpful recommendation of ICOMOS. I wish to commend the Association of the Heritage of the Vineyard landscape of Langhe and Monferrato that will in the future perform the duty connected with the management of such a complex site. Finally, we sincerely hope to welcome you very soon in our hospitable territory. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your 50th World Heritage Site. And now we will move on to...
Thank you very much.
If I can just ask Italy to switch off your mic.
Thank you very much.
Can I please ask Italy to switch off your mic? Thank you very much. Okay, so now we can move on to the draft decision 38.8b.37, which is Bursa and Cumalikizik, the birth of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey. I now invite Mr. Balsamo to intervene.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We received a factual error notification concerning this nomination, and this notification is on page 105 of document in 8B4 Rev. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Bursa and Cumalikizik is a serial nomination of 8 component sites which illustrate the creation of an urban system establishing the Ottoman Empire in the 14th century. The property illustrates key functions of the social and economic organization of the new capital, which evolved around a new civic center. The city of Bursa is located on the northwestern slopes of the Uludağ mountain in the southern Marmara region. 7 of the serial components are located in the city of Bursa, while 1 component covers the village of Cumalikizik, approximately 8 kilometers east of Bursa. The components of 27 hectares are surrounded by buffer zones of 250 hectares. The nomination presents key centers of the emerging capital at the birth of the Ottoman Empire in the early 14th century. The first 2 site components are the Orhan Gazi Kuliya and the Osman and Orhan Gazi tombs. The complex at the time of its creation consisted of a mosque, a madrasa, a public kitchen, and a public bath. Orhan Mosque is the earliest architectural structure of this complex and shows decorative elements of the earliest Ottoman era. The madrasa and public kitchen have been demolished, but the commercial complexes of this component consist of several historic khans built during earliest Ottoman time. Bursa was conquered in 1362 by Orhan Gazi, son of Osman Gazi, who are both buried in Bursa. Their tomb was constructed in the 19th century following the destruction of an earlier Ottoman structure. The 3rd and 4th property components are Hudavendiga complex and Eski Kablica, the Old Turkish bath. Built by Murad I, Hudavendiga Kuliya began the expansion of the city towards the west. It includes a mosque and a madrasa combined in one building, in which the madrasa occupies the first story above the prayer hall. The old thermal bath of Bursa, in the vicinity of the Kuliya, is most likely built on the foundations of an earlier Byzantine structure. The 5th component, Yildirim Bayezid complex, was commenced in 1390 and is considered the most impressive of Bursa's Ottoman complexes. Built along the eastern border of the early Ottoman city, it became an important center of learning, but unfortunately its kitchen is not preserved and the hospital has been reconstructed. The 6th component, Yeşil complex, was commenced under Sultan Mehmed I. Its mosque is often referred to as the Green Mosque, as it is covered with Iznik glazed tiles and is considered one of the great works of art in ceramic tile production. The 7th and final component inside the city is the Muradiya complex, the last of the complexes built by the Ottoman sultans in Bursa. And it contains the first example of a Hazire graveyard, as can be seen here. The 8th component is the Cumalikizik village and its surrounding areas of agriculture and forest. It is a Waqf village which generated income for support and maintenance of the complexes in the city. Cumalikizik is said the best preserving of several such Waqf villages, providing the closest reference to what an early Ottoman village may have looked like. In ICOMOS view, the nomination is strongly focused on several separate urban centers, providing reference to early Ottoman times, but it almost entirely disregards the more recent Ottoman history and development of the city, which strongly influenced the appearance of the city as it remains today due to reconstruction works which followed the catastrophic earthquake in 1855 and created what is referred to as an Ottoman model city. ICOMOS considers that the focus on the birth of the Ottoman Empire in the 14th and 15th century presents a property which remains fragmented and does not demonstrate integrity or authenticity. ICOMOS considers that some serial components might be able to meet integrity and authenticity if the focus of the nomination was expanded to include several centuries of Ottoman city development up to the reconstruction and modernization schemes of the Ottoman model city of Bursa. This would, however, require a revised nomination with different component parts. ICOMOS considers that the boundaries of the serial components are in principle too tightly drawn to reflect on the creation of an urban system. The legal protection as well as conservation activity seems adequate for the proposed components, as does continuous maintenance mechanisms in cooperation with local stakeholders. ICOMOS considers that the management system for the overall serial property is adequate, but noting that the revision of the components will require changes to the management system as well. ICOMOS considers that while protection and conservation are adequate, the boundaries are not and will have to be modified. Also, interpretation and presentation facilities need to be improved. In conclusion, ICOMOS recommends that the examination of the nomination of Bursa and Cumalikizik, the birth of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey, be deferred in order to allow the state party to revise the focus of the nomination to emphasize Bursa as an early Ottoman capital, which developed further into a 19th century Ottoman model city, to revise the selection of the serial components, and to reconsider the inclusion of Cumalikizik in such a revised approach. If such a revised approach seems feasible, ICOMOS would further recommend augmenting the monitoring indicators presented in the nomination. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. ICOMOS Lebanon, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. À notre avis, ce dossier illustre de la façon la plus claire la quasi-impasse dans laquelle se trouve aujourd'hui le processus d'évaluation des biens proposés pour inscription sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Au départ de la Convention, l'évaluation des sites iconiques et du patrimoine monumental ne posait pas de vrais problèmes. On tombe très facilement d'accord sur la valeur universelle exceptionnelle des pyramides ou du Taj Mahal. Par contre, avec la complexification des dossiers, les choses sont devenues beaucoup plus compliquées. C'est particulièrement vrai pour le patrimoine culturel, puisque si l'évaluation du patrimoine naturel peut s'appuyer sur quelques données scientifiques plus facilement définies, celle du patrimoine culturel met en jeu des facteurs moins bien identifiables et laisse une grande part à l'imaginaire. Un bien culturel proposé pour inscription sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, c'est une histoire qu'on raconte, un récit qu'il faut construire. Lorsque le récit proposé par l'État partie correspond à celui de l'ICOMOS, les choses se passent bien. Lorsque ces deux récits sont en discordance, ou même, comme dans le cas du site de Bursa, sont presque en opposition, il y a problème. Dans le cas du Bursa, il est clair que l'État partie a basé tout son récit sur la spécificité de Bursa comme modèle exceptionnel de ville ottomane, articulé autour des complexes de kulliye du XIVe siècle, des khans, des bazars, ainsi que sur le système des waqf qui réglait le rapport entre les villes et les villages envoisinants. Le récit de l'ICOMOS, bien qu'il reprenne le modèle de la ville ottomane, inscrit ce modèle dans une approche totalement différente, basée sur une démarche typomorphologique classique, avec la prise en compte du système de voirie, de la morphologie des quartiers, des espaces publics, des types architecturaux, de leur évolution dans le temps, etc., etc. Il est normal, compte tenu de la différence entre ces deux démarches, que les éléments de la série proposés par l'État partie ne correspondent pas au récit d'ICOMOS, comme par exemple le village de Cumalikizik qui ne peut pas être intégré au modèle proposé par l'ICOMOS alors qu'il est fondamental dans le récit de l'État partie. Il est aujourd'hui impératif de modifier tout ce système d'évaluation des biens, de revoir les rapports entre l'ICOMOS et les États parties au cours de ce processus d'évaluation pour éviter de se trouver face à ce type d'impasse qui est nuisible aux États parties, à ICOMOS et à la Convention. Merci.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Qatar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Qatar believes in the importance of the OUV of Bursa Cumalikizik, present through ensemble and individual buildings, an important phase in the history, by being the first capital and the seat of Ottoman sultans, rulers of empire which spread to a three-continent, which lasted for almost 650 years. Almost all early 14th century attribute component of kulliyas and khan, bazaar area still exist, most of them still serving the same original function.
the city grown around them, and they are still in the center of it. Bursa also was created and managed by the early Ottoman sultans through an innovative and original system of planning process based on the establishment of social complexes, kulliya, which became nuclei for the neighborhoods related with villages based on the endowment, waqf system. Therefore, Qatar had handed an amendment for the site to be inscribed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Japan, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The historical importance of the Bursa is that it is known to international experts as the early 14th century capital in the time that the Ottoman Empire was being established. The selection of sites reflects this aspect. However, its e-commerce states that it is difficult, in quotes, it is difficult to reduce the Ottoman characteristics of Bursa to the restricted early 14th century phase of the Ottoman Empire, during which time Bursa was the capital, it's quote, end quotes. So yes, of course, the historical aspects up to the 19th century surely strengthen the value of the site. However, I wonder, this reason is good enough to stop the site to be evaluated as the originally state parties nominated. So that is, I'd like to e-commerce clearly about this to adding to 19th century values, up to the 19th century value to be enough to be considered or not. That is not clear for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vietnam.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La délégation du Vietnam note que Bursa est la première capitale de l'Empire ottoman qui illustre la création d'un système urbain et rural fondateur de l'Empire ottoman. Le plan urbain de Bursa est devenu le modèle d'urbanisation pour les autres villes islamiques. Et le Vietnam considère que le site justifie la valeur universelle exceptionnelle du fait que Bursa est la première capitale de l'Empire et a trouvé sa forme urbaine durant les premières années fondatrices de l'Empire. Est devenu le modèle d'urbanisation pour les villes turques, ottomanes ainsi que d'autres villes islamiques. Nous sommes donc favorables à la proposition d'étudier l'inscription de ceci sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
India.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India is convinced of the evident outstanding universal value of this site that has been presented by Turkey, and congratulates Turkey in doing so, and would also recommend that it be inscribed in the World Heritage List. Perhaps we could also ask the state party to amplify a little on the level of preservation in the serial components of the site. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Portugal, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous avons pris bonne note des arguments et de la lettre des erreurs factuelles soumises par la Turquie avant cette réunion. Il n'est pas question que la ville de Bursa a toutes les conditions pour démontrer sa valeur universelle, exceptionnelle, en tant que première capitale ottomane, un fait que d'ailleurs est reconnu par l'ICONUS. Nous tenons à signaler ici que cette nomination a un potentiel indiscutable, car elle présente d'emblée des caractéristiques très positives, à savoir les systèmes de gestion et les mesures de protection et conservation appropriées. Pour nous, la connexion avec la ville rurale de Cumalikizik semble appropriée, car cette liaison exprime formellement la relation profonde entre la campagne et la ville, qui à l'époque était une condition essentielle de l'existence d'une ville. Toutefois, en ce qui concerne le choix des éléments formels pour représenter Bursa ottomane, nous nous demandons, à la suite de l'ICOMOS, si ceux-ci sont les plus remarquables, car d'autres éléments structurels, éventuellement avec plus de potentiel pour représenter cette valeur et répondre aux critères d'intégrité et d'authenticité, peuvent être également rencontrés dans la ville. Nous tendons donc à demander à l'État partie de nous donner une explication plus détaillée sur les raisons du choix de ces éléments matériels dans le cadre d'une inscription en série. Merci.
Thank you. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair.
The Ottoman Empire, which is a central feature of this nomination, has been a long-standing referenced element of history, and as such, its significance is undeniable. We wish to congratulate Turkey for its commitment to conserve and safeguard this legacy for present and future generations. As it relates to the evaluation of the nomination, we would want at the very outset to get clarity on the components of the site, 6 versus 8, as any gray area, or rather as any gray area in this regard, could eventually impact the management and legal protection of the nominated site. We believe the nomination under criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are justified based on information in front of us, and we support the view that Bursa's uniqueness lies in its planning system and the city's linkage with the rural hinterland. This urban planning system became a model for other Ottoman Turkic cities, and we believe it is important to note that all early 14th century attributes of complexes, malls, and the marketplace still exist, and most sustain their original functions. I could go on, but given time, Chair, we would just like to say that based on all of what was referenced before and what is contained in the report from the State Party, that we would support inscription of this site. Thank you.
Thank you. Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Bursa is a very bright, amazing, oriental beauty city with a great amount of well-preserved architecture structures. Hammams, mosques, bazaars, schools, mausoleums are the brand and face of the modern city. We support the state party's focus on the period of 14th-15th century as the most important stage for the property, during which the city not only became the first capital of the Ottomans, but also experienced time of extreme development and flourishing. The State Party, in its explanation, gave us clear idea on the property as a serial nomination, which is combined of several unique serial components, including originally preserved Vakf village Cumalikizik. We are also convinced of its appropriate level of preservation and management. According with our strong point of view, the nomination Bursa and Cumalikizik has all grounds to be inscribed to the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 at this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Malaysia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Malaysia acknowledges Turkey's nomination of Bursa and Cumalikizik, which illustrate the creation of an urban and rural system establishing the Ottoman Empire from early 14th century to the middle of the 15th century. Bursa was the first capital city shaped by the complexes comprising buildings which are unique examples of early Ottoman architecture, and it still preserves certain tangible and intangible components of its early Ottoman identity, particularly through the establishment of Wakaf systems. Having read the document, Malaysia would like to highlight 3 points on the property. Firstly, based on the site boundary map of Bursa, there seems to be 2 sites that consist of 2 clusters sharing the same buffer zones. Having had these 2 clusters of the same buffer zone would be of advantage as this will protect the core zones and that there will be no missing areas or gaps between them. Thus, this serial nomination shall consist of 6 sites rather than 8. Secondly, based on the number of criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 of the property, Malaysia agrees that criteria 3 has not been justified as to provide a holistic impression of a testimony to the cultural traditions of the Ottoman era. However, the importance of architectural traditions and tradesman culture which are said to have influenced the city as stated in criteria 3 shall be combined in criteria 2. Finally, on the aspect of integrity of the property, Malaysia would like to know from the State Party to what extent the degree of damage on the buildings after the 1855 earthquake and the intactness of the buildings in retaining their architectural significance during repair and reconstruction works. Were the buildings completely destroyed during the earthquake or partially affected by but still maintain their building forms and characters. As such, conservation measures are important to maintain the integrity of the buildings. Malaysia feels that the property of Turkey's Bursa and Cumalikizik is an important site and recommends to be inscribed on the World Heritage List. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm getting a feeling that we're all on consensus to inscribe the site. So should we move on to the amendment, or does a committee member still wish to speak? I need to give ICOMOS the floor for clarification before we move to the rapporteur, and of course Turkey will get the floor after ICOMOS. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I noted 4 questions that I would like to answer in the order they were asked, starting with the question from the Honorable Delegate of Japan, questioning whether the focus on the 13th and 14th century architecture in Bursa would, in the view of ICOMOS, stop an initial nomination that might be expanded in the future. So I understood the question. In fact, ICOMOS considered that the architectural heritage that was preserved from the earliest 13th and 14th century, or in fact 14th and 15th century, was rather fragmented, and that none of the 8 components preserved the entire aspects of the heritage built at this time, and hence we felt that with the focus chosen by the state party, neither authenticity nor integrity could be justified. In response to the question of the Honorable Delegate from Portugal, whether those elements brought forward are the most outstanding elements in the context of the city of Bursa, a question which perhaps also the state party may wish to answer. Well, ICOMOS felt that Bursa had much more to offer than the fragmented heritage of the 14th and 15th century, and hence we didn't feel that these were the most outstanding complexes, which led us to the conclusion that outstanding universal value was not justified. However, we can confirm that all the Kulia complexes built by the Ottoman sultans in the time that Bursa was the capital, and in fact in 2 cases after Bursa was no longer the capital, are included in this nomination. However, there are numerous other complexes from the same time which were not initiated by the Ottoman sultans but by other founders, which were not included in the nomination as presented. And referring to the questions of Jamaica and Malaysia, which seem to be similarly asking for a clarification of the number of component sites. In fact, component sites are counted according to areas that are presented within separate boundaries. And the nomination presents 8 separate areas in boundaries, and hence we concluded that these are 8 component sites. Of course, we acknowledge that two times 2 components are part of the same historic Kulia complex, which we feel even illustrates more the fragmented nature of what we have been presented, and hence, because they are part of the same historic complex, they share a buffer zone, but in operational procedures they are separate sites because they have separate boundaries. So we speak about 8 component sites in 6 historic complexes. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Turkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to thank all the countries who have spoken and those who have not. And I would also like to thank the representative of ICOMOS for the thorough reporting on the nomination of Turkey, Bursa Cumalikizik. We have, Madam Chair, a difference of opinion with ICOMOS. We don't have neither a conflict of interest or conflict of views. You are not, now you are looking at a picture of Bursa Cumalikizik nomination site. This is not the most beautiful picture of Bursa. We're not trying to impress upon the member state parties how beautiful and how evolved Bursa is in the 18th, 19th, or 20th centuries. Bursa has actually been rebuilt as a significant model city after the earthquake in the 18th century. That is absolutely true. And we have again no disagreement on this with ICOMOS. But this is essentially not the origin of our nomination. Madam Chair, we are talking about an empire which has survived 7 centuries and expanded into 3 continents. And out of its territories, in the 21st century, we have more than 30 independent sovereign nation states with their indigenous languages, religions, and everything. So the history of that empire is so important. And the first capital of that empire state, which has not become then an empire in the 14th century, is essential because even though this Ottoman state in its establishment, when it was not yet an empire, it still has been able to form urban centers with functioning structures, social structures, religious complexes, educational sites, schools, madrasas, malls, shopping arcades, khans, etc. And throughout the 7 centuries of its history, when you look at Bursa today, several of those sites and institutions are still very much alive, functional. This is the essential part of it. And we're talking about Bursa not as the most beautiful and largest model city of the Ottoman Empire. We have Istanbul, we have Edirne, which have evolved after that. But what is the reason behind 4 of the sultans, Ottoman sultans, in their wasiyats, in their last wills, they have established their kulliyas back in Bursa and not in Edirne or elsewhere. This is very important. People went on visiting those sites over the centuries, respecting those sites, and building their settlements and continuing their lifestyle in those sites. People went back to offer prayers to the spirits of the sultans, to send their fatihas there. People went back, young girls who wanted to marry young brides, they went to express their wishes. The people who have been sick, they went back to Bursa to ask for healing from the god. And these were essentially the reason why the sanctuaries built around the kulliyas, the waqf structures have been systematically and continually the springs of an empire, and that is why we would request the inscription of this town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Turkey. Croatia, you now have the floor.
Actually, distinguished delegate, Ambassador of Turkey, gave the answers on the question that we wanted to raise following the ICOMOS recommendation, why they focused on Bursa in the 14th and 15th century and not on the Bursa as a model of Ottoman city in the 19th century in the dossier. So I think this question was cleared out. Thank you.
Thank you. Croatia, Algeria, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, notre délégation fait sienne les commentaires et observations exprimés par notre collègue du Liban. Il y a des différences de point de vue et nous avons eu, à la 36e session du comité à Saint-Pétersbourg, un débat long sur Bolgar. Et c'est sur cette différence de point de vue que nous avons évoqué de manière, disons, que nous avons évoqué à la 36e session difficilement. Y a-t-il une seule vue du sujet? On peut avoir des visions différentes, on peut avoir un point de vue différent sur le sujet. Et donc, cela pose nécessairement la question du dialogue entre l'État partie et les organisations consultatives. Madame la Présidente, Bursa illustre parfaitement la création d'un système urbain et rural fondateur de l'Empire ottoman au XIVe siècle. Et l'on peut, me semble-t-il, aisément justifier la relation entre Bursa, Cumalikizik, le paysage, le village rural, et les kélis ou les systèmes sur la base du système du waqf, et se rapporter à cette notion. Mais cette notion est très spécifique, à des contextes particuliers, qu'il faudrait et pour lesquels un effort doit être fait par les organisations consultatives. Le waqf a été institué, le waqf de Cumalikizik a été institué pour soutenir la ville de Bursa qui devait être créée. Et cette relation fonctionnelle, culturelle également, bien sûr, mais aussi sociale, parce que le waqf est une fondation qui a une portée de soutien socio-économique et à des situations particulières qui appellent une assistance dans le cadre de programmes sociaux soutenus par le waqf. Donc, je pense que des efforts devraient être faits pour connaître ces éléments particuliers à des sociétés. Dans le cas qui nous est posé, c'est une société musulmane. Et le waqf est un statut du droit musulman et qui s'applique dans beaucoup de pays. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, excusez-moi, nous demandons l'inscription de ce bien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Oh, merci.
If we can move on to the amendment, I think we will get an inscription, but I will give the floor to Portugal.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous remercions l'État partie des éclaircissements que nous a fait. Et nous étions déjà, mais nous sommes encore plus convaincus de la vue de Bursa. Et nous sommes donc heureux d'appuyer l'inscription de ce bien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial aujourd'hui, telle qu'elle a été présentée par l'État partie. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Serbia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My delegation wants to congratulate Turkey on the nomination of this site and also thank the distinguished ambassador for the clarification given to us. We underline the historical importance of Bursa as the first capital of Ottoman Empire, and as previous speaker we think that all conditions of OV has been met, and so we are fully supporting the inscription of this site to the World Heritage List. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to draw the attention of the distinguished delegates to the fact that we are about to convert a deferral possibly into an inscription for the 8th time if it happens. And I would like to ask my Turkish colleague to forgive me for this observation, but I think we have to think about the way we are working and the categories we are applying. This is what I would like to give to the consideration of this committee. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted a clarification on the site of Germany. But Philippines, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, thank you for this opportunity. Bursa and Cumalikizik, the birth of the Ottoman Empire, State Party Turkey is a significant site in the nomination list, and we believe this is worthy of World Heritage listing. May we request Madam Chair to move on to the amendments.
I support Philippines' suggestion. Does anybody object? Turkey, do you still want the floor? You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since the question addressed was very specific, I cannot oblige. I wouldn't be fair if I did not answer this question. Madam Chair, last year we have commemorated the 600th anniversary of Turkish-Polish relations. The year before we did so for the 400th anniversary with the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The ambassador of Canada to Cairo has told me that he is the 13th generation descending from the one-time ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium to the Ottoman court, who has been asked by the Sultan Caliph to accept his nomination as ambassador of the Ottoman Empire to Spain. Madam Chair, we are not competing politically with any country in this, whether it's a big state or a small state, a new state or an old state, a former colonial state or an empire. We are talking about not competition of cultures. We are talking about not competition or clash of civilizations or religions or culture. We are talking about bridging between cultures and civilizations. We are talking about cultural heritage. So the more heritage and culture we have and we endorse, the greater understanding we have between the nations. The more sites are inscribed as world sites, I think the world will get closer. Last year, the government of Kazakhstan proposed it to be the decade of cultural rapprochement between the nations and states, and it was declared as such. So I believe this committee is actually giving a very solid message this year, different from earlier years, that UNESCO's voice must be louder, it must be heard by the world, and it is not for conflict or isolation or exclusion or negligence, but we should move towards culture and civilizations. That is the essence of the subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Turkey. With that being said, Mr. Rapporteur, could you please read out the amendment? Oh, ICOMOS would like to intervene. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson. I apologize, but there were still two questions that I would like to quickly respond to. One was concerning the character of Ottoman model cities, which was highlighted by Turkey in mentioning that apart from Bursa, there were other so-called Ottoman model cities like Edirne or Istanbul, while in fact ICOMOS considers that Bursa is the only Ottoman model city, and the other two mentioned would not qualify as such under this category. The second question came from the honorable delegation of Algeria and was related to the Waqf concept, which they kindly reiterated and explained so beautifully in their statement. And I would like to reassure Madam Chairperson that we had no difficulties in understanding the relation between the village as the Waqf for the early Ottoman establishment of the city. However, the reason that we recommended to reconsider the inclusion of the village was more related to its condition and the aspects of authenticity, in that it was largely also dominated by 19th century structures rather than early 14th and 15th century architecture. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you. Mr. Rapporteur, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as announced along the debate, we received amendments from the distinguished delegation of Qatar for this draft decision, mainly in paragraph number 2, reading as follows. Inscribes Bursa and Cumalikizik, sorry for the pronunciation, the birth of the Ottoman Empire Turkey on the World Heritage List under criteria 1, 2, 4, and 6. Then the statement of standard universal value is on the screens, but in order to maintain the standard wording of the paragraphs, we change it by reading as follows. Takes note of the following provisional statement of outstanding universal value. And then we have just to make there is also an amendment of Qatar for new paragraph number 4. Recommends that the state party give consideration to augmenting the monitoring indicators to allow for judgment of
changes in a state of conservation and requests the state party to submit it by 1st February 2015. So those are the amendments we have received so far for this draft decision, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections to these amendments? If there are no objections or comments to be made, I now declare decision 38-8B.37 adopted as amended. I would like to congratulate Turkey on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription of this property. Turkey, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
After the word.
Madam Chair, as I stated in my second intervention, this inscription encourages us to cooperate even more with the World Heritage Center, with UNESCO at large, with individual state parties, not necessarily only members of the committee, and with the advisory bodies. We have here among us not only the government representatives, but also representatives from municipalities, academia, and civil society of our two inscription files, as well as Turkish media and other interested parties. Our resolve with collaborating, with sharing knowledge and experience, now as a new member of the committee, is more vigorous than ever has been in the past. We are grateful for all those state parties who have contributed to the inscription of our site, who recognized, who encouraged us, and who have been supporting us all along. Turkey believes that this is high time to raise our voices towards civilization and inter-civilizational dialogue. And we will comply with the requirements and the criteria. Since we have adopted the UNESCO criteria as Turkey's criteria, we will share to the greatest possible extent our knowledge and experience. Our commitment and our achievements until now will be the guarantees of our future collaboration with all the concerned parties. Our doors are wide open to all member states, all state parties, and the institutions who feel that they can benefit from our experience. We will continue to learn from you, and as we learn, our contributions to the work of the committee and to the goals of UNESCO will expand even further. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to draft decision 38-8B.38, another site from Turkey, Pergamon and its multi-layered culture landscape. I now invite Mr. Balsamo. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to recall that we received a factual error notification concerning the nomination of Pergamon, which is to be found on page 115 of document INF 8B4 Rev. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I now give ICOMOS the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. ICOMOS evaluation can be found at page 280 of document INF.8B1 in its English version. This is a serial nomination of 9 components, which altogether is proposed as a cultural landscape. Pergamon acted as the capital of the Hellenistic Attalid dynasty and later became the capital of the Roman province of Asia until the 15th century of the Christian era. It has been nominated under criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 because the Hellenistic city exhibits urban planning, its location and masterly adaptation of the built fabric to the topography, the technological arrangement and the still living monument, the integration of Anatolian and Hellenistic cults with a view for a long-term political strategy, and finally for its multi-layered history spanning from the Hellenistic through Roman, Byzantine and Ottoman periods. The major components include the Kale Hill, with the Acropolis, the Hellenistic and the Roman remains of on the Kale Hill slopes, the surviving remains from the Byzantine epoch and the Ottoman town of Pergamon, which grew on the Kale Hill slopes. The Hellenistic and Roman monuments of the Acropolis were conceived to adapt to the difficult topography of the Kale Hill. Remains of the theater, of the temples, of the great altar, the agora, the residential and commercial areas all attest to the achievements of the Attalids. During the Roman period, improvements to the water supply system were made to serve a triplicated population. Advanced engineering was applied to renovate the city with new temples and public buildings. In this period, the city expanded southwest of the Selinus Brook, where the famous Asclepieion healing center was constructed. The city shrank in the Byzantine epoch, and as we said before, only the remains of the St. John Church built over a temple has survived, or at least this is what has been presented in the nomination dossier. It further expanded on the slopes of the Kale Hill during the Ottoman period. Component 2 includes the Kibele Sanctuary, which was erected by the founder of Pergamon on Kapikaya Hill, some kilometers northwest of the Kale Hill and in its direct view as a form of recognition of the local cults. The remaining components are tumuli or burial mounds of Pergamon rulers that have been progressively incorporated into the Ottoman and the modern town. Some of them have been excavated, while others, unfortunately, were looted. The comparative analysis focused in the dossier focused only on the Hellenistic and Roman epochs, but not on the Byzantine and Ottoman layers. However, the selection of the components appeared justified, at least for the Hellenistic and Roman period, in ICOM's view. Unfortunately, almost no information was given on the layout and structures of the Byzantine city, so the justification for this proposal does not cover all areas and periods of the series. The town from the Ottoman period has also been included in the nomination because it has been built over the Roman remains. The property appears of adequate size to present the city and its feature concerning its Hellenistic and Roman periods. The surviving ancient monuments in situ credibly express the value of the property and its role in ancient times. The nomination, however, does not convey how the Byzantine and Ottoman phases contribute to justify the proposed overview of the series, nor does it convincingly demonstrate that Pergamon has outstanding universal value, has a multi-layered landscape. Criterion 1 appears, in ICOM's view, justifiable for the town planning and the monumental architecture and infrastructure dating back to the Hellenistic and Roman period, but not for the vestiges dating back to the later periods. The incorporation of the Egyptian gods and of the cult of Kibele into the Hellenistic and then Roman cultural sphere where represents the value interchange that also allowed for Pergamon to flourish. As for criterion 3, in ICOM's view, it reiterates arguments used for criterion 2, while criterion 4 has not been fully justified. Most of the arguments proposed for criterion 6 have been used also for criterion 2. However, the two criteria may be justified in conjunction. However, ICOMOS feels that the criteria so far appear justified for the Hellenistic and Roman period because the nomination and its comparative analysis focused on these aspects. In the table, summarize the ICOMOS assessment in this regard. The main threats to the property are the urban development and forest fire hazard. In concerning legal protection, all parts of the series require protection at the highest level as a one entity. Some illegal building activities have been carried out within the nominated boundaries of the nominated property, but this issue is currently being addressed by the state party and the local authorities. The overall management framework is based on the environmental management plan and the urban conservation plan of Bergamo, regulating works within the urban area, and Bergamo municipality manages the series. In summary, in ICOM's view, the boundaries does not appear adequate at present. Those of component 1 should be revised and the buffer zone should be expanded or modified. in particular should be enlarged concerning the minor components and connection between the component 1 and component 2. Buffer zone of component 1 should join the boundaries of component 2, the Temple of Kibele. The protection needs strengthening and seismic monitoring established, and the management plan should also be finalized and implemented. In ICOMOS' view, the nomination dossier does not articulate the justification sufficiently and consistently to sustain the nomination of Pergamon as a multi-layered landscape. The comparative analysis, the arguments, and the selection of the components show that Pergamon stands out in combining the Hellenistic and Roman cities and its monument in connection with the mounds and the Kibele sanctuary only. Therefore, ICOMOS recommends that the nomination of Pergamon be deferred so as to allow the state party to refocus the nomination, reduce the boundaries of component 1, modify and adapt the boundaries for component 2, strengthen the legal protection at the national level for the whole revised series and of the buffer zone to limit construction to 2 stories, complete and implement the management plan. ICOMOS also recommends the revision of the name as it considers that Pergamon does not belong in the category of cultural landscape. There are also complementary recommendations for the best management of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Republic of Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank ICOMOS for the presentation. The Republic of Korea would like to commend and thank the state party for all the hard work done for this nomination. We sense Pergamon and its cultural landscape has a strong potential OUV element. In this regard, we would like to get more clarification on this nomination in order to expedite our consideration. I have found some Ottoman vestiges and remains are visible on the ICOMOS's presentation. However, according to paragraph 2A of the draft decision, the ICOMOS has recommended the state party to refocus the nomination on the Hellenistic and Roman period only to justify the value of this property. So we would like to hear ICOMOS's rationale behind this and the state party's view for further clarification. Thank you.
Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We think that Pergamon has been reasonably identified by the state party as a multi-layered cultural landscape. Evidences of that fact are fundamental and raise no doubts. We don't see reason for refocusing nomination on different periods of the property. According with the information provided by the state party, the local authorities have already complied with ICOMOS' request on the extension of buffer zones. Pergamon is a unique, well-preserved city in Minor Asia with monumental architecture, city planning design, and religious content which date back to Hellenistic and Roman periods. The state party has initiated visual impact assessment study and suspended construction in the buffer zone that we think settles ICOMOS' remark concerning regulation of construction activities within buffer zones. We consider that the state party has taken all the necessary steps and therefore propose the inscription of Pergamon and its multi-layered cultural landscape on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Germany, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Among scientists and far beyond, Pergamon enjoys a legendary reputation, an entire part of a World Heritage Site. The Pergamon Museum on the Museum Island in Berlin, in Germany, is named after this worldwide and well-known site. Pergamon in Turkey is one of the most important fields of science of the German Archaeological Institute, which since a long time has a branch in Istanbul. The director of the Istanbul department of the Professor Dr. Felix Pearson is a member of the Turkish delegation. I would like to ask the Turkish delegation to comment on the evaluation of ICOMOS especially in regard to the recommendation to give up the multi-layered approach and to refocus the nomination on the Hellenistic and Roman periods. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seems like you've had a change of heart.
Sorry to say.
Maybe it's to do with the museum in Berlin.
We have to reflect on what we are doing from time to time.
Thank you. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like Germany, my question is somewhat similar. India feels that the state party of Turkey has justified Pergamon's outstanding universal value in the several historical layers, including the Roman, Hellenistic, Byzantine, and Ottoman periods. However, we note that ICOMOS has preferred to restrict this study to only two earlier periods, the Roman and the Hellenistic. From our understanding, the State Party of Turkey has a well-researched and well-presented dossier, including strong reasoning for its outstanding universal value. Perhaps we could ask Turkey to explain their reasoning for a selection of all historic layers of Pergamon for nomination. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Croatia, you now have the floor.
Oh dear. Thank you, Madam Chair. I admit I was somewhat perplexed by the nomination file entitled Pergamon and its multi-layered cultural landscape, and was ready to accept ICOMOS' recommendation that the justification of the outstanding universal value should focus on the Hellenistic capital and the subsequent inclusion in the Roman Empire. This recommendation is consistently repeated throughout the report. The report is otherwise well balanced in that respect, and the conclusions and recommendations, like I said, appear altogether logical. Having said this, I congratulate Turkish experts for not playing it safe, so to say, but coming up with a proposal which is innovative and which considers the site not as a frozen archaeological park, but as a living organism growing on its past and out of its past. And going back to the main issue of this nomination, which has already been stated by other delegates, I would like to hear the explanation of the Turkish delegation on the aspect of its multi-layered cultural landscape, especially commenting upon what ICOMOS says is a strong cultural discontinuity from 5th century onwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Portugal, you have the floor.
Nous avons devant nous le dossier de nomination de Pergame afin de décider de leur inscription sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Et tout de suite, il y a une question que se pose. Pourquoi seulement aujourd'hui? Je me permets de dire que Pergame, du point de vue de la culture, a été toujours patrimoine de l'humanité. Il nous fallait beaucoup de temps pour parler du rôle de Pergame dans le monde culturel antique et de l'importance que toute la vie culturelle, et la bibliothèque par exemple, de cette ville exceptionnelle a légué et de laquelle les hérités sont tous les humains de toute la vie et de tout le temps. Voilà pourquoi nous sommes reconnaissants à la Turquie pour la présentation de la candidature de Pergame. À propos de la recommandation de se concentrer sur la période hellénistique et romaine, pour ceux qui étudient les villes historiques, il est hors question de séparer les temps de ces villes qui se continuent unes aux autres, car elles sont des cellules vivantes qui perdurent jusqu'au présent. Il est évident que des échelles d'analyse et d'évaluation de ces villes ne peuvent pas être de nature chronologique, car ces échelles ne tiennent pas compte du procès dynamique qui a permis leur évolution et leur transmission que nous appelons transformation. Donc, il sera un peu difficile de parler de l'importance de la ville romaine, hellénistique, byzantine, etc., comme s'il s'agissait des villes les unes à côté des autres, même si nous pouvons distinguer des quartiers spécifiques. Il s'agit d'une des plus grandes expressions de la civilisation qui a influencé le mode de vie et de pensée bien au-delà du temps classique et des frontières de la Méditerranée. Nous comprenons bien, donc, pourquoi il a dû être difficile à ceux qui ont préparé les dossiers de candidature de séparer la ville un moment ancré dans les périodes historique. Il est donc avec satisfaction que nous recevons cette nomination. En plus, parce qu'il s'agit d'un fichier fort, très bien préparé, qui répond aux exigences d'authenticité d'un tel site. Nous serons honorés de voir aujourd'hui inscrit dans la liste du patrimoine mondial un exemple majeur de la culture et de l'importance des arts pour le bonheur des hommes et la grandeur des esprits. Cependant, nous voudrions demander à nos collègues turcs de nous donner plus d'attention ou de donner plus d'attention à deux détails importants: la prévention adéquate aux incendies sur le site et la pression urbaine qui doit être un peu détournée. Parce que nous voulons que ce site continue à être le grand paysage que nous savons a été toute la vie pour nous tous dans le passé et l'avenir. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Algeria, you have the floor.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, je vous remercie. Je voudrais saisir l'occasion pour féliciter la Turquie pour avoir présenté ce site, sur lequel se sont succédées les civilisations hellénistiques, byzantines, romaines, ottomanes, et qui ont donné à Pergame sa richesse exceptionnelle, mais aussi la vitalité que Pergame connaît aujourd'hui. Ceci étant dit, nous notons également que l'État partie a mis en œuvre les recommandations préconisées par l'ICOMOS, à savoir l'extension de la zone tampon, la protection du site avec une législation qui a été également édictée pour la préservation et protection de ces sites, justement, la suspension des travaux de construction au niveau de la zone tampon, et surtout la mise en place d'un organe de coordination et de surveillance qui a été là aussi mis en place afin de finaliser le plan de gestion. Nous pensons donc que des mesures ont été prises et sérieuses, efficaces, qui peuvent et qui sont de nature à répondre aux préoccupations qui pourraient éventuellement peser sur l'intégrité de ce site merveilleux. C'est la raison pour laquelle, Madame la Présidente, nous soutenons l'inscription de ce merveilleux site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Malaysia acknowledges Turkey's Pergamon and its multi-layered cultural landscape comprising of 9 component sites dated back during the Hellenistic and Roman periods. Pergamon is a testimony to the unique and integrated aesthetic achievement of these civilizations as it endured also the Byzantium and the Ottoman periods, apart from the Hellenistic and the Romans, all the while preserving its previous cultural features as well as the landscape of its historical surroundings. Having read the document, Malaysia understands the importance of the property to the people of Turkey and the rest of the world, and that needs to be protected under criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Regarding the management plan of the property, Malaysia would like to ask the state party to update the committee members on the management plan. If the management plan is in progress, Malaysia would like to support the inscription of the property in the World Heritage List. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the Philippines.
Madam Chair, thank you. From the State Party's well-researched dossier, Pergamon demonstrates various tangible and intangible evidences of historical continuity. I'll just cite one, an outstanding example of such tangible evidence, having also intangible aspects, is the sanctuary of the Egyptian deities, which is called the Red Hall, which was originally built by Romans in the 2nd AD. And has been continuously served for religious use by different cultures throughout history till today. Following the Roman era, the building was converted into St. John Church in the late antiquity, and later a part of it was transformed to a mosque in Ottoman era, which is still in use. The Red Hall, or sanctuary of the Egyptian deities, consists of an enormous rectangular square, about 270 by 100 meters, which is still clearly visible in the layer of late Ottoman architecture of Bergamo's Old Town. The Philippines would like to suggest a change of its nomination to inscription. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jamaica commends the efforts of the state party Turkey and ECOMOS on this nomination. The recommendations from ECOMOS include extensions to the buffer zone, improving the monitoring system, and restricting vehicle access. The state party presented factual errors, but ECOMOS sees the concerns raised as clarifications. Jamaica would like to hear from the state party. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Vietnam, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. La délégation du Vietnam a étudié avec intérêt la proposition d'inscription de la Turquie et des informations complémentaires que l'État parti nous a données. Il s'agit là d'un bien en série composé de 9 sites. Nous notons que Pergamon est un rare exemple de ville à multiples strates, particulièrement hellénistique, qui dispose d'un paysage de vestiges des empires romains, byzantins et ottomans. Pergamon témoigne donc dans l'échange d'influences dans une ère multiculturelle et l'État parti a entrepris d'importants efforts pour résoudre le problème de délimitation de la zone tampon ainsi d'améliorer le plan de gestion. Dans ce sens, nous souhaitons que ce site puisse être inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Senegal, you have the floor. Senegal, would you like the floor?
Merci Madame la Présidente. Tout ou presque tout a été dit sur ce site. Nous pensons comme nos amis de l'Algérie qu'il y a certainement longtemps qu'on aurait dû le classer. Nous pensons que sa valeur universelle exceptionnelle est avérée. Il y a des problèmes de gestion et de zones tampons qui ont été soulevés. Je pense que l'État parti pourra nous donner des informations précises sur les initiatives qu'il a eu à prendre dans tous les cas, et je pense que cela est valable pour tous les sites. Le renforcement de la protection légale, la protection contre toutes sortes de pollution, y compris visuelle, est une constante pour les sites du patrimoine mondial. Je pense que nous pouvons faire confiance à l'État parti et recommander l'inscription du site. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Turkey, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a demonstration of our commitment and partnership and strategic cooperation with international advisory bodies and institutions, the Turkish statement will be made by Professor Dr. Felix Pearson, who happens to be the director of the Istanbul branch of German Archaeology Institute, and he is the head of the excavations in Pergamon. By me also sitting Dr. Güliz Bilgin, Altınos from Middle East Technical University, who is a prominent member of Turkey ECOMOS, as well as he is the head of Department of Architecture of that university. So they are both going to be available for your questions. Thank you. Dr. Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, distinguished delegates. The presentation of Bergamo as multi-layered cultural landscape is fully justified by a unique interdependence of historical strata from Bronze Age to our time, comprising a time span of about 4,000 years. The definition of the nominated World Heritage Site as a landscape is in accordance with the testimony of the preserved cultural remains. City and countryside always formed a network of great symbolic significance by the conspicuous placement of grave mounds and sanctuaries, which are both included in the designated World Heritage Site. Different from sites consisting of one layer on top of each other, Bergamo stands for an active interaction between the various historical layers on the tangible and the intangible level, comprising the reuse and appreciation of older historical strata as well as their transformation. The respective processes are imprinted in the physical remains of a cultural landscape which developed under the influence of various cultural traditions, including Anatolian, Greek, Roman, Ottoman, Jewish, or Armenian. Therefore, the multi-layered approach to Bergamo clearly supports the idea of equal value of the different cultural traditions in the definition of a World Heritage Site. Therefore, as an archaeologist working since more than 20 years at Bergamo and as representative of the German Archaeological Institute at Turkey, I thoroughly support the inscription of Bergamo and at the same time offer the full support of my institution to the state party in the future management of this most remarkable heritage of mankind.
Thank you, Turkey. I now give the floor to ICOMOS.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the only question that was addressed to ICOMOS concerned the multi-layered dimension and why the ICOMOS requested this refocusing of the nomination. ICOMOS does not deny that Pergamon is a multi-layered entity, but ICOMOS has not found in the nomination dossier, has the material evidence has been presented, that this can justify to be presented as a multi-layered landscape having outstanding universal value. That is, the material evidence that has been presented in the dossier and that's been examined through the comparative analysis has been focusing mainly on the earliest period. That's why ICOMOS has assessed the nomination in this regard. That is to say, what we have been presented, concentrated and focused on these two earliest aspects, that is the Hellenistic and the Roman period. I appreciated the explanation that has been provided by the scientific representative of the Turkish delegation. Unfortunately, this explanation was not part of the dossier, so what was presented concerned only two periods, and in that direction went also the comparative analysis. I think this is the only things that I have to say concerning our approach and why we have ended up with this evaluation and this recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Turkey, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, ICOMOS Turkey member will answer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I should say that in the dossier, these aspects were mentioned in different parts, but we should once more say that this was also questioned by various partners. The outstanding value of Pergamon is not just about Hellenistic and Roman periods concerning architecture, urban planning, and landscape. These are for sure very outstanding. However, these are not the only outstanding features. Pergamon has been settled without breaks, as shown also in the dossier, from Hellenistic period onwards. During this continuity over approximately many years, the settlement and its natural context have been re-intervened and reshaped with conscious reference to previous periods with various cultural traditions of Western Anatolia. In this respect, it is highly significant as well as unique example of urban culture at the crossroad of Anatolia and Aegean, and therefore which preserved its particular character until today. Due to this, we should consider that Pergamon is not only cannot only be considered as an archaeological landscape, but it should be considered as a multi-layered historical urban and cultural landscape. That is also mentioned by, I should also stress out the words of Director General of UNESCO a few days ago, where she said that there is no dominant culture, but there are interaction of cultures influencing with, each other, which can be very well seen in Pergamon. So this is why we're supporting it as a multi-layered cultural landscape. One last word is about the management plan. Management plan of Pergamon, conservation management plan of Pergamon was almost ready, but due to the recommendations coming from ICOMOS, which were correct recommendations, the boundaries are revised according to the recommendations of ICOMOS, so the management plan's approval process has been a little bit delayed. That is the only reason. Otherwise, we have the management plan as well for this conservation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Turkey. I now give the floor to the rapporteur. Could you please read the draft decision as amended? You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. And we have received amendments for this draft decision 38, 8B 38, from the delegation of Germany, mainly in paragraph number 2, reading as follows: inscribes Pergamon and its multi-layered cultural landscape Turkey on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Then also Germany proposed amendments in paragraph number 3, and in order to maintain the accurate wording, we need to reflect it as follows: takes notes of the following provisional statement of outstanding universal value, then the brief synthesis containing the information related to the criteria, the protection, authenticity, management are on the screen. In paragraph number 4, Germany is also proposing as follows: also takes notes of A, extension of the buffer zone of component 1, having included all the tumuli and their visual connections to the Acropolis. In paragraph 4B, the buffer zone of component 2 to comply with the natural protection zone beyond the Salinas River to the south and west. In paragraph 4C, that the state party has put in effect integrated protection measures at the highest level. And in paragraph number 5, further takes note of the visual impact assessment to foresee possible indications of constructions within the boundaries of the property and buffer zone to ensure visual integrity between the tumuli and the Acropolis. And then in paragraph numbers, which will become paragraph number 6, requests the state party to complete the management plan expeditiously and submit a progress report before 1st February 2016 for review by ICOMOS. And then in paragraph 7B, Germany is also proposing to make a small change to withdraw the word to the reference to all, and the rest is okay. So those are the amendments we have received so far for this draft resolution, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any interventions or objections? There are no more comments. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We were wondering whether the committee might like to add the request that the state parties submit the new maps that they have developed for extending the buffer zone, or maybe they have been already formally submitted. I'm not sure about that, but are the boundaries already the new boundaries amended as according to the request of ICOMOS as the delegate from Turkey has said, or not? In that case?
We have provided already.
Okay.
Is that clear, ICOMOS? Thank you. Mr. Rapporteur, could you please go over the amendment so we can proceed with the decision?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the clarification provided by the representative of ICOMOS and the delegation of Turkey, I will discuss with them directly in order to reflect the mention where it should be reflected. But for the rest, you can proceed for the adoption, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Poland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just wanted to remind that in the case of changing decision from deferral to inscription, we are adding standard paragraph at the very end. So please do it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. We'll make sure to add it. Are there any more comments, Mr. Rapporteur? With that being said, I now declare decision 38.8b.38 adopted as amended. I would like to once again congratulate the Turkish delegation and distinguished guests from Turkey. This is the second inscription to the World Heritage Site, and not only is that the second inscription for Turkey, but that brings us to the 999 sites in the World Heritage list. With that being said, yeah. Turkey, would you like the floor? Turkey?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Turkish delegation is grateful to UNESCO, grateful to World Heritage Center, grateful to ICOMOS, grateful to all members of the committee and all the state parties and all the civil society and specialized institutions who are present today. I would first like to announce that upon request from the delegation of Botswana and the African Union, Turkey is prepared to give its place as the 1,000th inscription of the World Heritage List to Africa. And we will be happy with our status as 999, and Africa will be the 1,000th member of the World Heritage List. We are very fortunate as a country, as a people, Madam Chair. We have been inheriting multiple civilizations and multiple cultural layers. As the generations of modern Turkey learned from the words and principles of our founder Atatürk, we are very conscious of paying the attention and respect to all the equal layers of our precedent civilizations. The heritage that we have now is not only belonging to Turkey, but it belongs to the entire world. Whether it's Romanesque, whether it's Hellenistic, whether it's Byzantine or Seljuk or Ottoman or any other communities that have lived on the lands of Anatolia. We cherish them, we value them, we recognize them, we respect them, and we are committed to preserve, protect, and promote them as our common heritage. And for this, I want to repeat once again our determination to learn from your experience and to share what we have learned with all other state parties to the convention and beyond. And we appreciate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Turkey, and congratulations on your second inscription. I would like to acknowledge also the United States for allowing Botswana to take their position as a 1,000 site inscription as a recognition for the African Union. With that being said, we will move on to the natural properties to discuss the first site, which is the Okavango Delta in Botswana, this draft decision 38-8B.5. And now invite the IUCN to present the nomination of the Okavango Delta. But before that, Mr. Balsamo, have you anything to say?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the Okavango Delta nomination, we received a notification for factual errors, and this is to be found on page 11 of document in faith before Rev. Thank you.
Thank you. IUCN, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. It's an unexpected and great honour to introduce this file to the committee. Next slide, please. IUCN's evaluation of this property is on page 3 of both the English and French versions of the IUCN evaluation report. IUCN notes the factual errors submitted by the state party in some cases clarified and updated statistical information provided in the nomination and clarified the situation regarding hunting within the property. We also note that information provided by the state party and reflected within the evaluation report on the numbers and ethnicity of people living within the property is open to some question, and we are happy to work with the state party to clarify this. IUCN supports right-based conservation approaches that balance the needs of traditional use with conservation. The nominated property is situated in northwestern Botswana. It is a vast inland delta lying near the centre and lowest point of the extensive sand-filled Kalahari Basin. The delta comprises a fan-shaped plain of alluvial sediments with approximately 266,000 hectares of permanent swamps and an additional 1.1 million hectares of seasonally flooded grasslands. Next slide, please. The Okavango is one of a very few large inland delta systems without an outlet to the sea, its waters draining instead into the desert sands of the Kalahari. A unique attribute of this system is that the annual flooding occurs in the dry season, so plants and animals have adapted their lifestyles to synchronize to these annual rains and floods. The ecological and biological processes that define the Okavango system provide an outstanding and extraordinary example of the complex interplay between climatic, geomorphological, hydrological, and biological phenomena. Next slide, please. The property is nominated under natural criteria 7, 9, and 10. The annual flood tide pulse revitalizes ecosystems and is a critical life force during the peak of Botswana's dry season. The delta displays the extraordinary contrast of a vibrant wetland set within an arid landscape and the miraculous transformation of huge sandy, dry depressions by winter season floods triggers spectacular wildlife displays. Next slide, please. The property exhibits a continuous transformation of geomorphic features and a number of exemplary ecological processes related to flood inundation, channelization, nutrient cycling, and the associated biological processes of breeding, growth, migration, colonization, and succession. Next slide, please. The delta's diversity of sub-Saharan plants and animals is comparable with species diversity elsewhere on the African continent. However, the Okavango sustains robust populations of some of the world's most endangered large mammals, such as cheetah, white and black rhinoceros, wild dog, and lion, all adapted to living in this wetland system. The delta is recognized as an important bird area, harboring 24 species of globally threatened birds. Botswana supports the world's largest population of elephants, numbering around 200,000, for which the delta is the core area for the survival of this species. IUCN stresses that the Okavango has been identified in various studies as a priority natural site for addition to the World Heritage List for over 30 years. Next slide, please. The property comprises a mosaic of protected lands with about 40% protected within the Maremi Game Reserve and the remainder composed of 2 wildlife management areas and 18 controlled hunting area permits which are managed through community trusts. Because of its vast size and difficult access, the delta has never been subject to significant development and it remains in an almost pristine condition. The delta has been inhabited for millennia by small numbers of indigenous people living a hunter-gatherer existence, with different groups adapting their cultural identity and lifestyle to the exploitation of particular resources. And this form of low-level subsistence use has had no detectable impact on the ecological integrity of the property. Next slide, please. The State Party is encouraged to address a range of other protection and management issues to improve integrity. These include enhanced governance mechanisms to empower stakeholders, the development of a systematic wildlife monitoring program to understand the conservation status of key populations, and the rationalisation of veterinary control fencing, shown in this image here, to mitigate impacts on wildlife. Next picture, please. The health of this property is dependent on unimpeded environmental water flows, and a tripartite agreement has been executed between Botswana and neighbouring Namibia and Angola in this respect. Ongoing vigilance is also critical to ensure mining developments do not adversely impact this property. The State Party has undertaken to extinguish past mining prospecting licences overlapping the property and not to renew or reissue new licences. So the Okavango Delta is a site of unquestionable global value and an exceptionally special place. Next slide, please. IUCN therefore considers that the property meets natural criteria 7, 9 and 10, as well as integrity, protection and management requirements, and thus recommends that the committee inscribes the Okavango Delta on the World Heritage List. And the draft decision is set out on page 5 of both the English and French versions of Working Document 8B. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. As this is the 1,000th site, let's see if we can inscribe it the quickest. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Okavango Delta is for sure one of those sites in the world about which one could ask the question, why has this site not yet been inscribed into the World Heritage List years ago? And it has indeed been identified in IUCN's very early global gap analysis as one of 16 gaps in Africa. Germany congratulates the States Party of Botswana for its courage, its effort, and great work to bring this nomination forward. We support, of course, the inscription, and I hope, Madam Chair, you can make very soon your announcement.
I hope so, too. Algeria, you have the floor.
Madame la Présidente, merci, mais vraiment, je suis très fière de voir quand même l'Afrique, l'Union africaine, à travers ce projet qui deviendra le millénaire. C'est tellement beau, millénaire. Écoutez, je suis votre conseil, c'est très bien de l'inscrire pour toutes les raisons qui ont été données. Biodiversité, interaction entre la nature, la population, et puis aussi renforcement des capacités du pays, parce que là c'est important. Et à ce sujet, Madame la Présidente, puis-je me permettre, mais s'il vous plaît, alors remettez-moi à l'ordre si j'ai dépassé peut-être ma capacité, tout simplement. Moi, je vous verrai très bien, Madame la Présidente, être peut-être la marraine de ce projet. C'est le millénaire. C'est formidable. Le millième, pardon. Alors, je vous le propose humblement. Mais refusez-le si vous le souhaitez. Mais vraiment, je le souhaite. Merci.
Thank you very much, Algeria. Poland, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Poland would like to congratulate the State Party of Botswana for the immense work on the nomination dossier on Okavango Delta. We are truly convinced that the nominated property holds outstanding universal value with regards to criteria 7, 9, and 10 as proposed by State Party and supported by IUCN. We express our deepest belief that the inscription of the property on the World Heritage List will enhance protection of nature and will definitely help to mitigate any threats. The State Party of Poland supports the inscription of this worldwide known and wonderful area. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Colombia.
Gracias, señora Presidenta. Colombia concuerda con la evaluación técnica del órgano asesor en cuanto a que este sitio extraordinario cumple con los requerimientos para ser parte de la lista de Patrimonio Mundial, incluyendo la coherencia con los criterios, la integridad y la información sobre la capacidad para el manejo. Resaltamos también el papel importante que ha jugado para la conservación del sitio la comunidad local, presente hoy aquí en Doha. No obstante, instamos a que se refuercen los marcos legales y en general las figuras de protección del área para asegurar que en el largo plazo pueda mitigar amenazas comunes como la caza ilegal, por lo cual sugiere al Comité solicitar al Estado parte un plan de trabajo sobre control y monitoreo de los objetos de conservación que justifican el valor excepcional universal del sitio. Felicitamos esta inscripción. Gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Colombia. Sorry, did you speak already? Yes. Sorry. Senegal, you have the floor.
Madame la Présidente, on va parler à deux, je dirais un mot et puis Madame la Vice-Présidente dira le reste. Le Sénégal est naturellement très heureux de voir ce site proposé par l'organisation consultative Et nous vous rappelons, mesdames, messieurs les membres du comité, la discipline que le Sénégal a essayé d'avoir par rapport aux propositions des organisations consultatives. Ce site est d'une extrême importance et c'est plus d'1,8 million d'hectares que l'État parti met à la disposition de l'humanité. C'est extrêmement important. C'est à la fois une consécration et un très grand sacrifice. Nous notons aussi avec intérêt, et je pense que c'est une valeur universelle exceptionnelle, ce processus de précipitation de calcite et de silice qui donne naissance à des îles pratiquement sous nos yeux. Cela est important, cela mérite d'être vu et préservé. Nous pensons donc que c'est un très grand bonheur pour voir enfin un site africain inscrit, depuis que nous avons commencé à inscrire des sites il y a maintenant plus de 36 heures. Je passe la parole à Madame la représentante permanente du Sénégal à l'UNESCO.
Je vous remercie. Madame la Présidente, dans la même foulée, je voudrais remercier le comité de la délicate attention dont il a fait preuve pour qu'un site africain soit le 1000e inscrit. Pour autant, nous ne pouvons imaginer qu'il s'agisse d'une compensation, mais plutôt d'un symbole. Et à ce titre, nous espérons que la fin d'un cycle, 1000, avec tout le symbolisme que cela a, comme le disait tantôt notre collègue d'Algérie, marque un nouveau départ. Et que ce nouveau départ, ce nouveau cycle que nous appelons de nos voeux, soit le reflet des désirs, enfin de ce qui a été ici évoqué tout au long de la session. J'ai parlé d'une meilleure transparence dans la gestion des dossiers du comité. J'ai parlé d'un meilleur dialogue entre les organes consultatifs et les États. J'ai parlé de notre responsabilité partagée et j'ai parlé également là de la meilleure représentativité que la liste du patrimoine mondial devra avoir, puisque nous savons qu'aujourd'hui, pour 1000e qu'il soit, ce site africain représente très très peu. Nous allons aller sur un pourcentage, je n'oserais pas le dire, mais de 5% de la liste. Et voilà, donc encore une fois, c'est une expression de joie, certes, mais un souhait, également un regret. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I have 13 more requests to take the floor. I don't know if we could move on to the inscription. As I am told, we need to discuss one more nomination, and I have it at my watch says it's 6:05. So if you allow me to move on to the decision, unless anybody feels so strongly to speak. Does anybody feel so strongly that they need to speak, or could we move on to the decision? Thank you very much for the consensus and cooperation on this suggestion. I will now pass on to the rapporteur. Have you received any amendments to this draft decision?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for this draft decision 38-8B5, we have received no amendments, but just as a clarification, in the paragraph number 3, when we are adopting the statement of outstanding universal value, there are some technical adjustments that need to be precised according to the factual errors letter recognized by IUCN and the state parties. So needless to read it out, and you can proceed for the adoption of the 1000th site of the World Heritage List, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I now declare decision 38-8B.5 adopted as amended. Let me congratulate Botswana on behalf of the entire committee. The first site of the World Heritage List was a natural heritage site, the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. The 1000 site is also a natural heritage site. Two very different sites from two different continents, but both of unquestionable significance. I am delighted to have witnessed the 1000 site and congratulate the distinguished delegate from Botswana, the African Union, UNESCO World Heritage Committee, IUCN, on this achievement. I would like to now give the floor to Botswana. You have the floor. The Minister of Tourism? Minister of Botswana, you have the floor.
Madam Chairperson of the UNESCO 38th session of the World Heritage Committee, honorable ministers here present, 21 members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to at this stage acknowledge Lebanon and Senegal for motivating that Africa be the 1000th inscribed heritage site. This was also made possible by Turkey and the USA agreeing to change in position to allow this to happen. We thank you so much. On behalf of His Excellency the President, Lieutenant General Seretse Khama Kama, and the government and the people of the Republic of Botswana, I am pleased to accept the status bestowed on our Okavango Delta as a World Natural Heritage Site. This is evidence that the international community recognizes and acknowledges the natural, outstanding, universal values of the Okavango Delta. Madam Chair, let me assure you that the government of Botswana is committed to the protection of all its natural and cultural heritages, regardless of whether it is a World Heritage Site or not. We therefore assure the committee that we will continue to work with relevant stakeholders, most importantly, the communities living and around the Okavango Delta, and the riparian states of Angola and Namibia to maintain the integrity of the Okavango Delta. We are very honored to have the Okavango Delta as one of the World Heritage Sites after Tsodilo Hills, which was inscribed in 2001. The success of this nomination is attributed to the support of the African World Heritage Fund, the World Heritage Center, IUCN, ICOMOS, through the Nomination Training Program for Africa, dedicated to the training of heritage professionals in Africa in the development of nomination dossiers with the aim of increasing the number of World Heritage Sites in Africa to the World Heritage List. This inscription has indeed contributed to the aim of the program. Some of our officers were trained in the first cycle of the training program in Lesotho in 2008 and 2009, which was supported by the government of Lesotho. They also led a team of experts who worked on the nomination file. I'm therefore proud to inform you that this nomination is a product of the hard work, commitment, and dedication of Botswana professionals. Most importantly, let me thank the people of Ngamiland for taking care of the Okavango Delta. Their participation and support in the nomination process, and assure them that government will continue working with them to maintain the integrity of the Okavango Delta and ensure that they benefit from it. I would also like to thank the Department of National Museums, the Director, and monuments, government institutions, non-governmental organizations, the hospitality and tourism sector, academia at University of Botswana, Okavango Research Institute, and individuals who took part in the nomination process. I would also like to thank the state parties of Angola and Namibia for their support and cooperation, and assure them that we will continue to work together to maintain the integrity of the Okavango River Basin and ensure that our people benefit from the resource. As part of the inscription of the Okavango Delta as a World Heritage Site, my government will host an exhibition here today called Celebrate the Okavango, the Jewel of the Kalahari. Botswana welcomes you to visit. I thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go back to the agenda and we will be discussing the draft decision 38 Com 8B.39. I now invite ICOMOS to present, but before so, does Mr. Balsamo have anything to say?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to remind the committee that we received a notification for factual errors concerning this nomination, which is to be found on page 122 of document INFAIT before Rev. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I pass on the floor to ICOMOS, I would like to excuse myself, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. ICOMOS, you now have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. ICOMOS evaluation can be found at page 291 of document INF 8B1 of the English version. This is a new nomination proposing an archaeological earthworks complex dating back to 3,700, 3,100 before present, built by a society of hunter-fishers-gatherers. The property sits on the Mekong Ridge, a slightly elevated and narrow landform overlooking the surrounding agricultural lowlands. The area has always been safe from flooding but prone to soil erosion, and the ecologically rich riverine environment of the region favored human occupation. The nominated property consists of 5 artificial mounds, 6 concentric elliptical ridges separated by shallow depressions, a central large plaza, traces of a causeway, and burrow areas. Other mounds and earthworks do exist in the setting of the property, but they have been said to date to different periods. All features were built through substantial earth moving. Even the flatness of the plaza was obtained artificially by careful regularization of the surface, filling gullies and flattening bumps, implying a considerable amount of organizational capabilities. The monumental complex has been nominated on the basis of criterion 3 because it integrates different forms of earthworks of exceptional size and scale into a man-made landscape, supporting symbolic, ceremonial, trading, and residential functions, attesting to the complexity of the society of its builders. It is also a remarkable achievement in earth construction in North America for its size. Mound A is the largest within the complex, 22 meters high, and 200 per 200 meters wide, and one of the largest in North America. The comparative analysis is well-grounded and convincing. It has highlighted the outstanding specificities of the nominated property, both at the regional and global scale. The property bears credible witness to the proposed justification thanks to its location, the extensive archaeological research. Its present setting, essentially agricultural in character, contributes to the understanding of its cultural significance. A significant proportion of the elements currently known to make up the configuration of the complex are within the nominated property, which exhibit a coherence of design able to convey the proposed OUV. However, the national federal designation as National Historic Landmark includes also another mound called Motley Mound, which is located 2 miles north of the nominated property, and is not being included within it, and that's raised some concern within ICOMOS. Alignments between mounds within the nominated property and others outside have been read. One is the Motley Mound mentioned before, and the other ones are the Lower Jackson Mounds to the south, have been read as an intentional act to incorporate them within the wider layout of the complex. And this concerns integrity. And the further issue relating to integrity is Highway 577, which is a local traffic road which intersects the plaza, that is the nominated property, from northwest to southeast. In the immediate setting of the nominated property, but outside its boundaries, numerous traces of related core encampments, resident sites, and scatters of lithics have been mapped, and they also support the understanding of the property and of the PowerPoint culture. On the other hand, the considerable amount of the lithics coming from as far as hundreds of miles from the property bear witness to the wide and complex exchange network set up by this hunter-fishers-gatherer society. In summary, while the comparative analysis demonstrate the justification of the property for inscription, criterion 3 has been justified and that the synthesis is met, integrity appears fragile due to the absence of a buffer zone and to the presence of Highway 577. The main current threats to the property are soil erosion and private agricultural activities in the immediate setting. Potential threats may also come from privately driven activities which are not subject to federal authorization or federal funds. As for boundaries, some features functionally related to Poverty Point are not within the nominated property, nor are they part of a buffer zone, as has been noted before. Nominated property belongs to the state of Louisiana, which operates and manages it. It is well protected both at the federal and the state level, but the immediate setting of the property is covered by federal law only, which foresee assessment and mitigation procedures only when federal agencies, funds, or permits are involved. Management structures is established, and the permanent staff enjoys cooperation with the Louisiana State University for investigation and protection. A detailed management plan documents a good integration between management needs and archaeological research. Presentation to the public is also well developed. In summary, with regard to boundaries, the lack of a buffer zone or adequate protective mechanism causes concern to ICOMOS. The management of a nominated property is overall adequate, but in the absence of the above-mentioned buffer zone, it should be extended to address the immediate setting of the property in ICOMOS view. For its age, scale, and design refinement, Poverty Point sheds light in an exceptional manner on the level of cultural and organizational complexity reached by an ancient society of hunter-fisher-gatherers. However, for the issue described before, ICOMOS recommends that the nominated property be deferred to the state party so as it can define the immediate settings of the nominated property, including important views, areas, and features functionally important to support the property in this protection, and provide it with formalized mechanism of protection and management, and then divert the Road 577 outside the nominated property. There are also ancillary recommendations that complement the major ICOMOS recommendation for this property. Thank you very much.
Maintenant, j'ouvre le débat. La parole est au Pérou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those unacquainted with the history of American archaeology, this site might look a little bit humble and small, but it actually has a long-standing tradition, and it has featured work done by some of the most remarkable American archaeologists working not only in this part of North America, but throughout the continent, particularly James Ford and John Guvrin. I think that because we have already agreed on the fact that authenticity and integrity are, fulfilled, the issue comes down to the aspect of, regulation, protection, and management. I think that we have to take into consideration that each country has different traditions in regards to the way sites are handled. Traditions that are congruent with local regulations, that tend to be quite different in the federal versus centralized governments. In the case of the United States, I think that the way sites are handled through the multiple layers of protection that are given by federal, state, and local authorities have proven to be exemplary in some cases. Furthermore, I think that because ICOMOS does not require as an absolute necessity the fact that there is a buffer zone and that other forms of protection can actually be set in place to ensure the protection and the continuity of the sites, I think that this point can be actually not observed. Finally, we think that the issue of the highway, which is important, regrettably is one that is quite common among many other World Heritage sites. And actually the point that is made by the state party regarding the fact that taking out the highway would probably produce more damage than keeping it in place, should be rethought in terms more of regulating the use of this feature than actually its removal. So in this case, and considering these aspects, the delegation from Peru considers that Poverty Point should be nominated today. Thank you.
La parole est à la Finlande.
Thank you, Chair. One of the main concerns related to this nomination is the lack of a buffer zone. As far as we know, the United States of America have a different approach to the buffer zone question than most state parties. Actually, I think that none of their sites actually have a buffer zone. Therefore, Finland would like to give the opportunity to the state party to explain their way of dealing with this issue. Thank you.
Parole est à l'Algérie.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le projet d'inscription Les tertres monumentaux de Pont a retenu toute notre attention. Nous voudrions féliciter les Comos pour l'excellent rapport soumis à notre appréciation, dont les contenus sont largement en faveur d'une inscription. L'analyse comparative produite est solidement argumentée. La justification de la VIE appropriée. Les conditions d'intégrité sont remplies. Les conditions d'authenticité également. Le critère 3 sur la base duquel est basée l'inscription est justifié. Si globalement le bien répond aux exigences d'une inscription et l'État partie félicité par l'ICOMOS pour le travail effectué, la recommandation de l'ICOMOS, à notre grande surprise, diffère son inscription en raison de risques pouvant affecter le bien. Selon les informations recueillies auprès de l'État partie, des dispositions sont déjà mises en œuvre au niveau fédéral et local pour mettre fin à ces menaces, sujet de préoccupation de l'ICOMOS. Il serait utile à ce propos d'inviter l'État partie à apporter les éclairages et les informations utiles. Madame la Présidente, pour notre part, notre délégation a soumis un amendement en faveur de l'inscription de ce site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
La parole est au Japon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. As I understand, this site is an archaeological site, and the value of the remaining things has definitely outstanding universal values. So well protected as an archaeological park. The issue is buffer zones, and buffer zone is to protect the site. It's not to include it in the other sites to have values. That is related to how to set the boundaries. And at this moment, is we think that is in a deferral. It's a bit hard. It does not fit as the recommendation as to be cited. And I would like to at least referral over the recommendation as the inscription. Would like to follow the discussion of the committee members. Thank you very much.
La parole est à la Croatie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to commend the State Party for this excellent nomination. We see that all the important elements in their dossier have been met. Therefore, we would go for inscription, and we also look forward to see the additional explanation of the State Party on the recommendation given by ICOMOS. Thank you.
La parole est au Portugal.
Thank you for giving me the floor. We have studied very attentively this dossier and the evaluation of ICOMOS and noted the recommendation for deferral. We are nevertheless stricken by considerations and evaluations by the advisory body which may be difficult to justify. For instance, ICOMOS states that the comparative analysis is well-grounded and convincing, but contrary to what is usual, ICOMOS does not make neither a reference to the elements of comparison, nor does it justify its conclusions. Another example of inconsistency, and I'm quoting, ICOMOS considers that Highway 577 presents a considerable interference to the experience of the site, and it is also a danger for visitors, but surprisingly states that the conditions of integrity are met. Two last examples. Firstly, ICOMOS seems to satisfy itself with a vague declaration of the State Party saying that industrial development in the vicinity of the nominated property is highly unlikely, rather than demanding guarantees on the protection of visual effects and other components that may affect the property. Secondly, ICOMOS considers that the legal protection in place is adequate, and it is the highest level of legal protection possible. We agree with this assertion. What we don't understand is the fact that in similar situations, and as we have experienced in Portugal, the highest level of protection seemed not to be sufficient. To conclude these remarks, we are very glad to see a nomination such as Poverty Point to the World Heritage List. It is a striking property, unique in its cultural and archaeological singularity and value. However, its nomination dossier should have been better developed. Before taking any decision regarding this dossier, we deem it useful to have additional information and eventually additional commitments from the United States. First, to provide us with a detailed boundary plan by early 2015, granting full visual protection, be it in form existing gas storage facilities or from future visual threats, because we still feel that this is not, at this point, duly secured. Second, ICOMOS considers Route 577 as a danger for visitors. We understand that diverting the road could put an additional threat to the site, but while respecting the OUV and the visual protection of the site, we ask, could the United States implement protective measures that would remove this danger? Can the United States provide the World Heritage Center with a plan and a commitment along these lines also by early 2015? Mr. Chairperson, if the United States are in a position to respond positively to these questions and assume these commitments and provide this committee with the necessary proofs in a short delay, February next year for instance, we think this committee could consider the inscription of Poverty Point on the World Heritage List today. Thank you.
Merci. La parole est à la Jamaïque.
Thank you, Chair. Poverty Point could be viewed as a site ahead of its time with respect to the impressive skills of culture bearers who ingeniously supplied resources needed to maintain a thriving cultural landscape. We congratulate the USA for protecting the integrity and authenticity of the landscape and equally ensuring its legal protection and management. We feel the state party has convincingly presented a nomination worthy of inscription. We, however, note, Chair, that the issues concerning researchers and other experts who undertake work over long periods should be given the benefit of demonstrating their knowledge and expertise. There appears to be a number of differences of opinion, and we would wish, for example, to hear the State Party and ICOMOS respond specifically to what is referenced as the functionally important boundaries of the site and the formalized legal protection related to the site. We feel these are important issues to address. And we would also like to make a note about the placement of the road in proximity to the site. Heritage assets cannot realistically exist in isolation of development. We must recognize and be prepared to protect with relevant measures as is presented by the State Party in this case. Thank you.
La parole est aux Philippines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The Philippines extols the nomination of monumental earthworks of Poverty Point of State Party USA. The site is of definitely outstanding universal value at a global scale, age, size, and articulation of remarkable earthworks, shedding light on the exceptional manner on the level of cultural and organizational complexity reached by the society of hunter, fisher, gatherer. Surprisingly, we are in quandary as to the advisory body's recommendation. I quote, divert Highway 577 to outside of the nominated property and its immediate settings. We would like to ask the ICOMOS advisory body to qualify the verb divert Does this mean abandon the existing highway and construct a new highway or an overpass or a bypass road outside the core zone? Is the highway such a monumental block that would disrupt the OUV criteria for this inscription to be deferred? It is of our view that this groundbreaking and earth-moving site is worthy of inscription to the World Heritage List. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
La parole est à la Colombie.
Gracias, señor presidente. Nuestra delegación ha evaluado cuidadosamente esta nominación que hace los Estados Unidos. En primer lugar, nosotros quisiéramos reconocer el excelente trabajo que ha hecho ICOMOS, remarcar la importancia que este lugar puede tener, que este sitio puede tener para una mejor y más amplia comprensión del poblamiento y la ocupación del continente americano antes de su contacto y encuentro con Europa. Siendo consecuentes con esto, nosotros consideramos que esas recomendaciones que hace ICOMOS pueden ser incluidas claramente dentro de la propuesta de enmienda y recomendamos nosotros ampliamente la inscripción de Poverty Point en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial. Muchas gracias.
La parole est à la République de Corée.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Republic of Korea believes this outstanding, integral, and authentic property deserves inscription at this meeting. However, the buffer zone issue pointed many times by ICOMOS and previous speakers cannot be left unanswered before inscription. Therefore, we would like to invite the United States to answer its alternative method in mind to the buffer zone to ensure the protection of this site. Thank you.
La parole est à l'Inde.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Mr.
India.
Thank you, Chairperson. We also acknowledge what the other committee members have said, and we recognize the outstanding value of this site. We think it is definitely worthy of inscription, but we would want to hear the state party on their clarification on the buffer zone as well as the impact of the highway. Thank you.
La parole est à l'Allemagne.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. Now, we have taken note that criterion 3 and authenticity and partly integrity, boundaries, protection and monitoring have been approved by the advisory body. As several speakers, previous speakers, we would like to ask the state party to comment on the recommendation of ICOMOS, especially in regard to the presence of Highway 577 and the requested buffer zone. And in addition, I would like to have put a question to ICOMOS. Relocation sometimes causes damages, especially in regard to archaeological sites. Is ICOMOS sure that the relocation in this case does not cause damages? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
La parole est au Qatar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's so much have been said. Qatar, however, echo the other state party by echoing state party by having this site to be inscribed in the World Heritage List, and to give the floor for the United States for more clarification. Thank you.
La parole est à la Turquie.
Thank you. The site is well preserved and protected and justifies OUV according to Turkey. However, as ICOMOS evaluation pointed out, additional protective area around the site as a buffer zone that would reduce the potential adverse impacts to the site is required. We therefore would like to hear additional information from the state party to address these concerns. We are prepared to join a consensus decision on the inscription of the file. Thank you.
La parole est au Sénégal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je pense qu'au vu du rapport de l'ICOMOS et des différentes interventions, que ce comité n'a pas tellement de problèmes par rapport à la valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Par contre, il y a peut-être des problèmes de gestion, de protection auxquels il faut penser et pour lesquels peut-être on peut aussi demander à l'État partie de donner des explications. Je pense d'abord à la Highway 577. Je pensais que seule l'Afrique avait des problèmes d'aménagement du territoire. Bon, apparemment, beaucoup de pays ont ce type de problème. J'aimerais bien savoir quel est le point de vue de l'ICOMOS par rapport à l'impact de cette voie de dégagement sur le bien. Je voudrais aussi que nos amis américains nous disent est-ce que des études d'archéologie préventive et des fouilles de sauvetage éventuellement ont été opérées afin de minimiser l'impact de cette voie sur le bien. Je voudrais aussi que nos amis américains nous disent qu'est-ce qu'ils pensent de la recommandation de l'e-commerce relativement à l'acquisition, à des acquisitions foncières. Apparemment, toutes les terres autour du bien ne sont pas des terres de l'État et que des problèmes d'acquisition sont nécessaires afin de cimenter le bien et de le rendre plus cohérent. Je pense que si l'État parti est en mesure de donner des explications concluantes sur ces deux biens-là, on peut envisager son inscription sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Je vous remercie.
La parole est au Vietnam.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Vietnam a étudié avec beaucoup d'intérêt ce dossier et nous voyons que le critère 3 a été rempli, ainsi que le critère d'intégrité et d'authenticité. Nous souhaitons donc obtenir davantage d'éclaircissement de l'État parti à propos de la question de la zone tampon et nous sommes prêts, si les informations obtenues sont claires, à aller jusqu'à l'inscription de ce site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
La parole est à la Malaisie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Without taking too much time, Malaysia would support and echo what the other committee members have said. And we share the same concerns on Highway 577 and the buffer zone. Thank you.
La parole est au Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much, Chair. We have studied the information provided by the State Party in response to ICOMOS recommendations. Our vision now is that all features functionally important for OUV are within defined boundaries. All the features within and outside the boundaries are well protected against any negative threats to the property by all necessary means, including federal and state legislation. The rural road is invisible from most of the site and does not have negative effects on the property. Therefore, Kazakhstan would like to support the previous speaker's view that the Poverty Point site should be inscribed on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
La parole est à la Serbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My delegation would like to thank state parties for good nomination and also to stress that the site fulfills all criteria for OUV, and we fully support the proposal of Algeria and strongly support inscription of this poverty power into the list. Thank you.
La parole est aux États-Unis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The monumental earthworks of Poverty Point, a state park located in Louisiana, survives as a testament to Native American culture and heritage. 26 regional Native American tribes join us in support of this nomination. Regarding a buffer zone, First, the operational guidelines do not require a buffer zone when adequate protections are in place, as they are here. This state park is also protected by federal laws because of its status as a national monument and a national historic landmark, and because it is situated within legally protected wetlands and bayous. Therefore, any significant actions which may disturb this site and its surrounding setting must be reviewed under multiple layers of federal and state law, including the National Environmental Policy Act and the National Historic Preservation Act, which requires full participation by the state of Louisiana. The state plays a role in this regard. Poverty Point is surrounded by a pastoral landscape of small farms and open space. State and local authorities have enacted firm resolutions to maintain this rural landscape as it is and avoid any incompatible development within an 8,000-hectare area surrounding the site. Plus, the state has a policy of acquiring land in the area when it is available for further protection. All of the relevant features are located within the boundaries of this site, and the outside archaeological features are also protected through a combination of federal and state laws and NGO ownership. Finally, moving the 70-year-old road would cause irreversible harm to the abundant archaeological resources located at the site, and moving the road outside the site would also interfere with the setting. This quiet road, which serves the community of small farms in the area, is mostly invisible, does not interfere with the visitor experience. No accidents with visitors have resulted from this road, and the state is implementing additional safety measures which can be reported within the requested time frame. If the committee would like additional information, our experts from Louisiana are here and we're ready to answer any other questions, and we thank you for your consideration.
Je donne la parole à l'ICOMOS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've annotated a number of questions and I will try to go through them in the order they have been put forth. I think the first state party that has posed question to ICOMOS was Portugal. The honorable delegate of Portugal asked a number of questions concerning comparative analysis and industrial development, and then the issues concerning the protection, the level protection of the site. Concerning comparative analysis, ICOMOS has summarized the approach that has been proposed by the state party, and since it did not find to have to discuss that because it demonstrated convincingly that the property could justify, did not go in length in describing or posing arguments because the comparative analysis was justified. So it was shorter because it did not raise questions in terms of the ICOMOS assessment of that part of the dossier. Concerning the industrial development and the fact that ICOMOS appear not to be consistent in that it assessed that the integrity was met. Well, one point was already made by the state party before, that in fact there is a number of legislation at the federal level particularly protects from substantial and large scale possible intervention or development. What was the concern of ICOMOS was related mainly to the minor and small intervention connected to the agricultural activities that even the nomination dossier reported as having had harmed in the past the mounds. So there are, for example, one of the mounds that has been cut through by leveling due to agricultural activities. So these were the concerns of ICOMOS in suggesting mechanisms that for the protection of the wider setting. And concerning the highest protection that has been granted to the nominated property, in fact, the ICOMOS concerns were not asking for more protection for the nominated property, but for more protection and mechanism of protection for the setting of the property. I think that Jamaica posed also a question concerning formalized mechanism explained. ICOMOS didn't want to push as it has been explained in its evaluation, to push for a buffer zone, formalized as a buffer zone, but to set up mechanisms that can be found at the planning level. I mean, the state party in that sense could elaborate a strategy that fits within its own specific context. So we didn't want to impose a buffer zone set as a buffer zone. So we left in a general term that these mechanisms should be in place and should be formalized so as to make clear that they are effectively in place and can be communicated to the members of the committee and ICOMOS as well to understand what has been put in place by the state party. Concerning diverting the road 577, ICOMOS discussed in length this point concerning also other sites, archaeological sites that have roads passing through their boundaries, so the preoccupation was also related to other sites that have this issue to face, and the development that the use of the road could, the harm that could be related to the use of the road. And the idea of diverting was also related to the existing road network that, in ICOMOS' view, when we discussed that the issue, could also have helped to sustain the traffic of the road through not creating a new road, maybe, but using the existing network that was already in place. And this could be also seen within the maps of the property. And I think this is respond also to the issue that was posed by other honorable delegates from Germany, and I have noted maybe there are other comments concerning highway and the impact of the highway, and I think I have answered in this respect to the questions.
Je passe la parole maintenant au rapporteur pour l'adoption.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. And actually, for this draft decision, as announced along the debate, we have also received amendments from the distinguished delegation of Algeria, mainly in paragraph number 2, reading as follows: inscribes the monumental earthworks of Poverty Point, United States of America, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criterion 3. Then we have to modify it, or there is an amendment for paragraph 3, and in order to keep and maintain the accurate wording, we need to say as follows: takes note of the following provisional statement of outstanding universal value. Then it is as proposed on the screen. In paragraph number 4, there is a new B, reading as follows: continuing to implement and assess best management practices that have been successful in minimizing the impact of Highway 577 on the visitor experience at the site. And the paragraph 4C, reading as follows: continuing to build capacity and expertise within the management system to profit from the existing geographical information systems GIS approach. And then we also need to add the standard paragraph, which will be the new 5, requests the state party to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1st December 2015 a report including a one-page executive summary on the implementation of the above-mentioned recommendations for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 4th session in 2016. So far, Mr. Chairperson, those are the amendments we have received, and you can proceed for the adoption. Thank you very much.
S'il n'y a aucune objection, je déclare la décision 38 comme 8B.39 adoptée avec les amendements. Je félicite les États-Unis d'Amérique et je leur donne la parole pour 2 minutes. les États-Unis pour 2 minutes. Ah, ils sont en train de...
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee. We are deeply grateful to the committee for recognizing this unique and remarkable place which stands as a legacy to Native American culture and heritage. The monumental earthworks of Poverty Point is now the 22nd World Heritage Site in the U.S. As one of the original signatories, the United States remains committed to the principles of the World Heritage Convention, and we will continue to be an active participant in promoting its success. Today's inscription of Poverty Point is a wonderful milestone in our long history with the World Heritage Program. We also wish to thank the state of Louisiana, who has been an outstanding partner during this process and whose exceptional stewardship will continue to protect this special place. I'd like to offer the opportunity for Ms. Pam Breaux from Louisiana to offer her remarks.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the state of Louisiana, I am so incredibly pleased to express our gratitude to the committee for the inscription of the monumental earthworks of Poverty Point. Inscription and continued protection of the site are vitally important to our state and to the 26 Native American tribes who have joined us on this journey to inscription. Further, in this room, as I observe the placards that name all of the countries represented here today, I am reminded that this very summer, 9 years ago, so many of your countries came to Louisiana's aid during our darkest hour after Hurricane Katrina, in large part because of the generosity and kindness of your countries. Louisiana has returned to the state that continues to preserve and celebrate her heritage and her culture, while continuing to offer gifts of new music and art shared worldwide. I am humbled to offer you our heartfelt thanks for the role the international community played in our recovery and our comeback. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Si je passe la parole au secrétariat.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I'd like to make just 2 announcements, and you certainly would see it on the screen. This is the panel discussion on World Heritage Partnerships for Conservation, a side event organized by the World Heritage Center together with its partners. It will take place from 7 to 8 p.m. in room number 215 and would be followed by a cocktail. Let me also remind you that the Bureau will take place tomorrow from 8:30 to 9 o'clock in room 103. And we have also been informed that the small drafting group concerning item 9C has yet to meet tomorrow. So this group would be able to meet at lunchtime during the lunch break in room 104. Thank you, and I believe there are no further announcements for tonight.
Alors, je déclare que la séance est suspendue jusqu'à demain 9h précise.